Hey, what's up guys, Chelsea, welcome back to more Witch on the Holy Night. Last time we finished chapter 12? I lost track, I think it was chapter 12, which was Witch on the Holy Night 1, where it ended off with apparently Aoko and Alice having snuck out and Father Airi distracting Sojuro so he wouldn't notice. But he ended up just saying anyway, like, hey, if you want to go help, go help. And Yuiko was not happy with that encouragement. But anyway, let's get started. Witch on the Holy Night 2, which I believe is, if I'm right, this should be chapter 13. And someone told me that the game had 13 main chapters. Yeah, it kind of looks like, well, actually it looks like there's space for, no, hang on. So 1, 2, wait, no, this is 1.5, right? Yeah, okay, so 1, 2, 10, 11. No, there's 2 more chapters then. If what I was told about the ring 13 was right, there's 2 more. I think. I don't know. Maybe the person said 12 and I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure he said 13. Anyway, started Witch on the Holy Night 2, next episode. We're with the wolf. The golden wolf's ears stood pointed, twitching in response to the sounds around it. Its meal finished, it curled up into a ball in anticipation of nap time, and yawned half from boredom. The old abandoned classroom had fulfilled its purpose many moons ago. For a month, the wolf had spent his time resting on top of a heap of disheveled desks. His name was Werewolf. He was a purebred werewolf named after the sun at his birthplace and a hero of legend upon leaving there. It goes without saying he was not from this country. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. He came from a land deep within the European wilderness, surrounded by mountains and forests. His homeland was a realm no human had ever set foot in. In their isolated world forgotten by time, a diminishing race of werewolves lived in peace. This was where Bayo first appeared. Okay. It's interesting how they're giving us a backstory. I mean, I guess if they didn't give us a backstory to to the werewolves, we would all be wondering about it, like what the fuck. So I guess they kind of had to throw this in, but if it does feel a little bit forced because like this character came in at the end of the game, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. In a cave on the outskirts of their village, the werewolves found a child bearing the same golden coat as their ancestors. The child was sleeping soundly as if in his natural habitat. The village welcomed their new member with open arms. 2,000 years of advancing civilization had been cruel to them. As the forests were destroyed, valleys unearthed, and waters polluted, the werewolf birth rate dwindled. They were now facing 1 birth a decade. Sheesh. The child's golden coat, deviating from the typical gray or white and shared only by their ancestors who were treated as gods, felt like a sign their prayers had been answered. And was it? A bloodline in atrophy. The werewolves were forced to embrace change. This radiant child, at least temporarily, made them forget about their troubles. That's a good thing, right? Alas, as time passed, their hopes turned to disappointment. The golden wolf was not their salvation. For some reason, Lu, that ray of golden sun, remained a child. Decades passed and still he did not grow. Forever young, immortal, cursed. He searched the village for his birth mother, but to no avail. He searched the village for someone who understood his plight, but to no avail. Over hundreds of years, he came to realize something. He was different, very different, neither male nor female, neither strong nor weak, ignorant of life and death, joy and fear. That thing's a spirit born of nature. Might look like us werewolves, but don't let that fool you. Wow, rude. I assume that was something he overheard someone else, one of his, village mates saying. So rude. But the child himself needed not conjecture to know his own true nature. He was perfect, and therefore he was alone. To the golden wolf, the world was too small. That was why. Indeed, that was the very reason. He wanted to know what life was. He wanted to know loss. If he was all-powerful, he wanted to know the mystery behind his all-powerfulness. Because as it was, his existence was meaningless. The golden wolf was at a loss, as were the werewolves around him. They revered him, but at the same time wanted nothing to do with him. Liu moved back to the cave he was discovered in, and resigned himself to a life of seclusion.
太陽のルー？ルーガルじゃなくて？
I don't get the reference, but
そりゃ面白い。偶然にしちゃできすぎだ。
And then one day, a quirky mage visited the village.
ガタガタとうるさい。トウコさんもあれだよね。派手好きなくせに豆だよね。
Yeah, I wonder. From his place on top of the rubble, Bayo peered into the hallway. He thought his fussy master was busy dealing with Misaki City's ley lines, but she was engrossed in making traps. 1 month passed since they made the dilapidated building their makeshift workshop. Crafting a new trap for intruders became a daily pursuit of Toko's.
安全を用意しておくなんて、他の生き物は大変だ。
She doesn't care. Having been like this since birth, knowing neither infancy nor dotage, he thought differently than others. For he was perfect from the day he was born. Never declining, never improving. As such, he had no comprehension of weakness. Childlike, fickle, and without morals, he had no concept of good and bad as either a human or a wolf. A beautiful creature disconnected from the world around him, he was on top of all other creatures. With one exception, his master, Toko Aozaki. She showed him a sparkling, delicious world, and above all, he found her scent refreshing? Okay. To him, the world was divided into what was cool and what was not. Your preference and leisure pursuits were of no consequence to him, and he never took gender into account. The only thing that mattered to him was whether a person's life was logical, and therefore cool. Okay? I don't... So a logical life is cool to you. Okay. Toko Aozaki had her faults, but she spelled good. Okay. Sure.
ベオ、昼食は済ませたか？
Bayo's master entered the classroom, presumably done with her traps for the day.
夜が本番だ。それまであまり羽目を外すなよ。
Uh-huh. Sometimes, like now, she would nag him, but on the whole, his master pleased him. In reality, the contract binding her to him was not particularly powerful. If he wanted to, he could tear her to pieces at any time. No human could restrain him. However, he had no intention of killing Toko in exchange for his freedom. And there was a reason for this. In order to move about freely in human society, he needed someone like her. As long as she didn't offend him, he had no reason to rock the boat. However,
やっと本番か。待たせすぎだよ、トウコさん。
the promise she had made him in his cave and the reality of their situation had begun to come apart at the seams.
来い。最高の神秘と戦わせてやる。
What is she referring to? Cause like, I'm pretty sure Alice's bridge troll, whatever it was, I forget the exact name of it, but I'm pretty sure that, or London Bridge, that thing was like her strongest one, right? Aside from maybe Flat Snark, but I don't think she can use him again yet, right? And even then, even in this place, it wouldn't be as powerful as like the amusement park. So like, he was compliant up to now, but his patience was wearing thin. The fight with the newest magician last night was an enormous letdown.
そういうな。私も昨日は拍子抜けだったんだから。
いいけどね。実はあの子、使わないんじゃなくて、使えないだけじゃないの
？Are they referring to the like red the you know the thing that happened in the amusement park in the House of Mirrors, right? When Aoko saw her death. The what was it called? Oh my god. Hang on. It was the like. Oh god, I don't remember what she called it. It was like the. But like, it was when she was like, I can see like. God, why can't I remember the exact, like, you know what I'm talking about, right? The like red, where she was like, I can like, when she was about to fight the puppet, the automaton, and she was like, and because her magic was sealed off, she was like, I can like, she could like see her the not see the future really, but like she could see what was gonna happen, and it was like goading her, like use me, let me at it. And then she was like, no. Like that thing. Is that what they're talking about? It has to be, right? Because we haven't, that hasn't been brought up since then. And they wouldn't just like mention that for no reason. So it's like, that has to be what they're talking about. His master's expression turned serious. Not in agreement at the wolf's question though. For she had already asked herself the same, and many other similar questions.
いや、使うぐらいなら死んだ方がマシなのかもな。
Okay.
そんなバカなことがあるの？使わないと死んじゃう状態だったんだよ。
I guess the drawback is worse than death?
だから、そんなバカな考えが成立するぐらい。
That it must be too terrifying to use, Toko finished in her head. She stopped short of voicing it and chuckled at her emotional outburst.
どれほどのものか想像がつかないのは確かだ。だがまあ、根本は変わらないさ。 魔法がどのような奇跡神秘の類であれ、魔術師である以上、青子に勝ち目はない。
With those words, Bao's master walked out of the room, emphasizing that his role in all this was to face Aoko only at that very moment.
魔法ね。
Oh, did I have this backwards the whole time? I thought Toko was the one with the true magic, not Aoko. Wait, wait, did I think I fucked up. I think I had them backwards. The bored look in his eyes shifted. He recalled the taste of that girl, his long tongue sliding over his chainsaw-like fangs. Bao, that's kind of weird, buddy. But okay. Sure. Make no mistake, he would finish his meal. He was the oldest werewolf, the golden god of the forest. For as long as he could remember, no, from the moment he appeared, he had been the most powerful creature of all. All man-made mystics were trash before him. Magecraft was laughable, and mystic artificial miracles which even surpassed that were superfluous, futile. Their very existence was an insult to him.
もちろんそういう契約だし、ちゃんと平らげはするけれど。
Yeah, I guess. That was the extent of their pact. Once he had dealt with this so-called true magic, he was free. His eyes burned with the wolf inside of him, his fanged maw twisting into a sadistic, beastly grin. Well, this can only go well. Which on the holy night, too. It was just past 7 p.m. Misaki High School's old building stood silently. While light from the city reached the area, the forest and mountains kept the area hushed. Nothing unusual. During winter vacation, the old building, now still covered in yesterday's snow, was rarely used. Without signs of life, such unused structures are mere monuments of what once was, nothing more. The old school building would remain that way until the start of the new semester. Behind it, the vast forest grew darker by the minute. If the building had died in just under 2 weeks of vacation, what had become of the forest over the years? The wall of overgrown trees filtered out the noise of the city and most of the moonlight. An otherworldly realm had taken root, not even 2 miles away from town. Piercing the cold night air, footsteps crunched through the powdery snow.
この辺りに仕掛けはなさそうね。
Yeah, for now.
それでどうするの？このまま旧校舎に忍び込む？まさか私らがやってきたことなんてとっくにバレてるわ。
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if that...
隠れても意味はないし、何より敵のアジトに入ってどうするのよ。盗みが目的じゃないでしょ、今回は。後ろから切りつけるのは強盗というのじゃなくて？
I mean, again, I don't think there is any surprise to be had.
それができれば苦労はないんだけどね。まあ忍者の真似事は私というかアリスの芸風じゃないでしょ。そもそも やる気満々なのはこっちもあっちも同じってこと。
Yeah, it's very true. The sound of their footsteps stopped in unison. The old, forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be the schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked a shell of its former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourners at a funeral.
せっかちなお嬢さん方だ。タイムリミットまであと4時間はあるというのに。
Yeah, I mean, you know, may as well not dally. Alone in the middle of the altar, of the white altar, was the lone, scarred red mage. Yeah, she was called that in, Karna Kyokai by the, one dude. I forget his name. The guy with the top hat who was like really full of himself, but it was actually just like had a huge like inferiority complex. That guy. As she came out from the forest, Aoko lowered herself slightly, scowling at her distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Why does Aoko's hair look almost black here? Oh no, her hair is straight up black, I think. Maybe it's just the shadows, but I don't think so. But Toko's shines through as red. Or, I mean, it's kind of purplish. Maybe it is the shadows. I don't know. Aoko was reminded of Sleeping Beauty. Except this mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in that. You know, fair. Not to mention she wasn't sleeping. And there was no prince. Regardless, this princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers.
その体で無理をして。
Yeah.
あなたのそういうところ、姉としてどうかと思うわ、青子。
Yeah, bullshit. You don't care. Like, come on. Toko grinned faintly. Aoko fought back the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in sibling rivalry. Toko stood about 100 feet away. With their senses sharpened through magecraft, in the silence of the forest, they could hear each other perfectly. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Toko faced the two girls alone. Yeah, no, her hair is just straight up black right now. There's something weird going on. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for a mage battle. A few paces in front of her was Aoko, whose combat garb was comparatively out of place, a Misaki High School uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. Yeah. Though it was a trivial miscommunication, Toko seemed to think it had some special meaning. Uh-huh.
ところで、始める前に一ついいかな。
Yeah. Yeah.
気になって仕方がないし、この先機会もないだろうから聞くんだけど、あなたの戦闘服ってそれなの？青子。
Well, you know, we kind of don't have a choice at this point. You know, so it's like, may as well roll with it. Toko spoke clearly, and despite the distance, was able to. God damn, I am like tripping over myself. So, like I trip over myself like sometimes. Like it happens, but this morning I am just tripping all over the place. was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Aoko would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait.
そんなわけないでしょ。今までこういう機会が多かっただけよ。数えるなら今日を含めて4回しかないわ。
True.
ま、私はまだ現役だからそれも悪くはないかもしれないけど、いつか流行るでしょ、こういうのも。
Yeah, okay. Sure it is. Aoko was sure to emphasize her words. I guess it's supposed to be a dig at Toko's fashion sense. For a split second, Toko's eyes narrowed.
呆れたな。相変わらずのローセンスだ。
それはどうも。人形を実の妹に見立てる異常者にそう言われるなら、一周回って安心よ。
I can't tell. Is the voice actress for Aoko not Aoko. For Toko. Is the voice actress for Toko the same one from Kara no Kyokai? It kind of sounds like it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was different, because it's not like exactly the same. But again, you know, this and Kara no Kyokai were like... You know, well... No, because the original version of Witch and Holy Night wasn't voice acted, right? It wasn't until the newer Japanese release like a year ago where it was voice acted. Or whenever it came out. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the voice actress's voice just changed a little bit. But, no. With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. Their bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. And Alice is like, really? Really, that's what you're gonna do? Well, the two of them sized each other up. Alice surveyed the area around Toko. There was no indication anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Toko didn't feel like Aoko and Alice were much of a threat in their injured state. Or was she really not expecting a counterattack so early, so the werewolf wasn't ready? No. After some contemplation, Alice surmised it was the former. Yeah, she really was going to fight alone. Unless Aoko pulls out some crazy shit, I don't know. Her arsenal comprised her mystic eyes and rune magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Aoko and Alice in their current state. Alice, all I need is one shot. Aoko signaled to Alice behind her with the movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as a backup, Aoko was hoping to catch Toko off guard. They had a few other cards up their sleeves, but the fact remained that as mages, their attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf. Yeah, probably not. So they decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Aoko. Bruh, I keep doing that. They focus on taking out Toko. I don't know why I keep saying Aoko. But, okay. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two of them could come up with. Fair. But they had been thrown a curveball. Toko had the upper hand, so she was reluctant to use the beast. Aoko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. By distracting her with sibling banter, she would settle things before the werewolf even showed up.
じゃあ、今度はこっちの番ね。どう？結界の張り直しは進んでる？
You mean the like boundary fields?
まさか昨日の今日よ。まだ手をつけてもいない。 せいてはことを仕じる。
Yeah, she wanted to settle things with you before doing it.
だいたい私の目的は霊脈の奥にあるもので、結界そのものじゃない。張り直しは予定にないさ。まあ土地を暴くなんて面倒な真似をするより、お前を暴いた方が早いのかもしれないが。
I mean, yeah, probably.
やっぱりそれが目的だったのね。ならなおのこと、あんたを魔法使いにするわけにはいかないわ。
Aoko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Toko remained motionless but for her mouth, which twisted into a smirk.
魔法使いか。確かにまだ執着はあるね。私には移植されなかった魔術刻印と青崎の伝える魔法の正体。
So it wasn't that Aoko or Toko or either of them gained true magic. The family did, and it's been passed down? I don't know.
だがもういいよ。欲しくはあるが、到達すればどちらも自分で用意できる。
Can you?
それとも、今ここで私のために魔法の正体を見せてくれるのかい？青子。
Maybe. Toko's words came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Aoko wanted to defeat Toko, her best chance would be to use this mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would have used it to avoid being mauled last night. Aoko Awazaki couldn't use true magic. Toko believed she needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection their grandfather placed on the formulae was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that wasn't because he was concerned about the human world. It was no exaggeration to say he'd feel nothing if magic leveled the entire city. The truth was, true magic never had any conditions. Aoko was being held back by trauma. Oh. These 5 privileges, the only powers of their kind, were bound by cognitive seals. That's why Toko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down with a mere sword. Aoko knew that better than anyone else, which is why she couldn't forgive her sister's ridicule. Just try using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it.
ええ、お望みとあらばね。
Yeah, you get her, Aoko. With a burst of pure rage, Aoko made her move. Her colorless shoes sped across the untainted snowfield. Like a stone skipping across the water. As Aoko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced, like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used the lock property to bind an opponent. It did not have the Logos property to discern truth through an illusion. Once the magecraft's workings were revealed, its weakness was exposed.
足癖が悪いのも変わらず。
In a mere 4 seconds, her opponent had closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on a mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Konji, didn't take a single step.
被弾覚悟の特攻。アリスから5歩でももらっているのでしょうけど、反省なさい、青子。切り札というものはあくまで自己の力によるものを言う。
Who says it isn't? Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position.
So.
Toko began engraving a rune into the air. But before she could finish, Aoko's footprints stopped. She was still too far away for close combat. What a strange place to end her attack. Maybe you made a mistake in your judgment. No way. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed? Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arm toward the sky, as if saluting the moon. Oh, but it was one of the robins. Flames tore through the air. You can see the feathers. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing it in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, the runes wrapped them in a wreath of flame. The assailant screamed, falling onto the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand out from the hellish fire, as if begging for mercy. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. Chirp chirp. The movement was far too theatrical to be Aoko. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Aoko from the moment the body fell to the ground. Yeah. Irritated, Toko glared at Alice. While Aoko had vanished into thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was force to fourth, a 4-bar Grand Magecraft, mobilizing her magic crest. Toko only had single-action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This torrent of energy was too much to handle. The rune formed in the magic circle. The rune of withdrawal was evoked, and Aoko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eyes. Within her opened pupil, the infinitely mirrored eyes captured their target in an endless hell. What? But the mage's sight was literally split in two. Okay, how? The space in front of Aoko distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. If Toko's eye was like opposing mirrors, then this was like sticking a one-way mirror at the triangulation point. With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock onto Aoko.
御水の鏡の効果よ、トウコさん。青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
That's clever. I assume they're talking about the mirror from like they talk like that they were in front of, talking about like way back, right? Okay. Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the mansion's mirror and the aimless little bluebird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded.
Set. Root. Direct current.
Raising her right arm to reveal her luminescent crests, Aoko took aim at her target 100 feet ahead. Magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she had received Alice's invisibility, Aoko had begun chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Aoko produced more spins in the awakened magic circuits than she'd ever done before. She ready to not snap, nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy, magic blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with the force of 10 tons. Oh! Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target, it was enough power to demolish even the old building behind her. Aoko stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack, or even the speed to evade. The fact she didn't move implied she knew better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Aoko didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger on her right hand. The last word came out like a scream. Under the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Toko was engulfed in dirt. I mean, let's be real here. They wouldn't make the last chapter 40 minutes. So what's the ploy here? Toko was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Aoko's magic bullet. It contained every bit of Aoko's magical energy she could muster. Viewing the chaos, Aoko confirmed her victory. Are you sure about that? And yet, somehow she felt bitter. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tutted at Aoko's childishness. Swallowed up? Okay. Her disappointment was so deep it bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
Her voice cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in a snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko, she deflected it with magical energy of the same level. I mean, Toko does have a point. If you play your trump card first, you never know what their trump card is, so they could counter you, so. Aoko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her. Or hadn't shocked her, though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Aoko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out from Toko's back. Wait, where did she get magic crests? Because crests are passed down. Did she steal someone else's crests? It all happened in an instant. The magic bullet approaching like a tsunami. Toko lightly snapped her fingers, causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecrafts from even beyond Western Europe. The kind normally carved into the flesh of a mage. The kind Toko Awazaki shouldn't possess. The kind only followers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crests, brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast to protect Toko. Okay, how?
と、まあこういうわけだ。レオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ。
Okay, but yeah, but how'd you get those? Toko's expression was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。
いえ。
探知や隔離だけでなく、援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えば、あれも破格のプロイだな。
持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？いや、
ただの自画自賛だよ。
Yeah, sure you are.
何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。
Oh, so you worked with Alice's mother? That's interesting.
その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマドリ。それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よくやったと言っておくよ。
Okay, but where's the but? Toko recounted their strategy, sharing her impressions as she went. Aoko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crests. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかし、それもここまでだ。惜しいな、青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、あと数年もすれば一流の射手になっていただろうに。
Yeah, I guess she could, yeah. Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crests began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何
？Aoko whispered to Alice standing next to her as she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eye off of Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り、魔術刻印。信じられないけど。
Yeah. Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Aoko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions, and technically no different from grimoires. However, the reality was far different. Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were the crystallization of a family's desires and ambitions, and proof of a successor's lineage. crests had no effects on their own, but they were the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with the crest, or lacked the resolve to merge with it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then that even if the crests manifesting behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them.
でも確かに私の魔弾はあの刻印からの魔術に弾かれた。あれはもしかすると。
Searching for answers, Aoko squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original inheritor could invoke one. There was only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Aoko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit. What?
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。
Okay. But that doesn't explain how you got a hold of them. Did you... Like, would killing a mage and, like, somehow, like, taking the... Again, how would that work? Like, there's no way however many different people in schools of magic gave you their crests. There's no way. So...
お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。だが実際に使用するのならこうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
Okay, so her saying they're not hers. She didn't steal them, and she probably wasn't given them. So, is she receiving help? Like, did she make a deal with a bunch of people saying like, hey, if y'all lend me your strength, I'll share the like ley lines and like magic and mana stuff of like Misaki City with you? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. And there's somehow... And it seems neither physically nor mentally. Aoko knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she would go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから、血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。
Oh, so she did steal them. Okay. I thought about her saying that not her... yeah, I guess, yeah.
で、奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。トウコさん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが。私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。
Yeah, kind. Yeah. Instead of killing them, you just locked them up in whatever kind of sort of state they were in, and are causing them massive pain by using their crests. But yeah, no, yeah, sure, yeah, no, kind, yeah.
その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ。肉親として。
You know, they're probably not okay.
前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。脳だけ保存とか面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
For some weird reason, I don't believe that. But okay. Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described had no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? Oh. It would have been more efficient to break down the crests into components and make replicas. Yeah, probably. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that much more useful than any enslaved mage. Yeah.
なんでそんなことを。そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。家庭より結果の人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。うちの実家、山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ？町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
Okay, but what does it have to do with her being? Because that's you. You said you walked it. So what's the point of the story in, like, involving Toko? It was the tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら、姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って。
That doesn't sound very good.
外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
Wait. What? How'd she get the marinara sauce? Wait, like... Wait. Hold on. Wait. What did she... Is it just no sauce on it? Is it just like rice cracker, cheese, and pepperoni and whatever else? Alice agreed that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
そんな無茶なやつだから、ガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。
Well, that's a bit of an overreaction, I think.
あんなのゲマトリア一節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The thought of the puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Aoko now that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed her eyebrows at Aoko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。
Yeah, true. She only survived because of Sojuro, so...
それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だから、お前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。まあもっともこの刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界を教わりはしたがね。
Toko looked to the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。搬入汎用のドロイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。
Okay, half yokai druid monk. A yokai is like a spirit, right? So, yeah, I'm not gonna question it.
ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト。ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
Toko stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather. Her smile betraying the long festering hatred she still clung to.
そういったわけでね。さっきの青子の魔術を防いだので、この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。あ、じゃあ、そろそろ終わりにしよう。
Bro, I hate when there's like a 2+ second pause with them talking. It is so annoying because they...
今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。青子、お前は僅差で負けたんだ。
There we go.
恥じることはないよ。
See? You see how... Y'all heard that pause, right?
抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in the old school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Aoko shouted back at Alice.
行って、アリス!
The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Aoko behind to handle Toko and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, there could be a round 3. That was why Aoko decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
トーコ自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃないものね。
Aoko muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact that she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else was there to curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest. Feeling her fellow mage's presence fade, Aoko continued to glare at her sister.
いつまでじらす気？私、待たされるのは好きじゃないんだけど。
Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It shouldn't have taken him more than a few seconds to come flying out of the old school building.
そうせくな。今赤ずきんを追っているところだ。黒帽子の彼女をそう例えるのはやや無理があるがね。
Yeah, I guess the little black cat's more fitting a little bit. Her tone reeked of irony. Yeah, you should have kind of expected that, to be honest. The words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. Aoko stood frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed so far away from reality. I'm still wondering why Aoko's hair looks black. Again, it could just be the darkness of the night, but I don't know. Aoko was done with being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off of the fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking toward her. He could not have been any taller than Aoko's chest, but he carried Alice over his shoulder with ease. As if she was nothing, he tossed her body upward. She arced through the air for several feet before dropping headfirst before Aoko's eyes. Her neck would snap on impact. Even though she was wiser not to, Aoko reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell into Aoko's arms. The stitches on her wounds tore, dyeing Aoko's arms crimson. Aoko gritted her teeth, fighting the pain that shot through her body and the sensation of the warm blood.
Alice, Uji.
Yeah, she's alive. Barely. Alice didn't respond, but Aoko could see she was at least conscious. The werewolf must have ambushed her right after she ran into the woods. Alice bled heavily from where the wolf tore her abdomen open last night, just like he had done to Aoko.
初めから森に潜ませていたとはね。
Cursing her own carelessness, she gently lay Alice's body down. She set her sights on the blonde-haired boy near her target.
つまりあれよね。甘く見ていたふりで初めから余裕なかったんだ。
Yeah, I guess. Huh. For some reason, I remember him looking different when Sojuro saw him. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I could have sworn he looked different. Even in the face of Aoko's rage, he didn't stop smirking. He stared back at the girls, eyes gleaming, twinkling with excitement at the brutality to come. The blonde hair and green eyes she saw last night, and his effeminate features now. Or, why did they do it? Why? Okay. And his effeminate features now seemed ethereal, like he had changed into a being from another planet.
Leo, 今日は食っていいぞ.
Toko's voice echoed from afar. The boy's grin broadened. Nobody could have expected what came next. Aoko rushed headfirst at the boy. Faster than a robin decoy, she sped, blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only look on with vacant eyes as she lay helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming predator. He's like, huh. Aoko crossed a 20-foot gap in a second before planting a foot in the snow. It arrested her momentum and pivoted her body like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. Using the momentum from her sprint, she pushed her leg into the ground and sprang up. Is she just kicking him? With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung in a wide arc toward the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. It was an expert display of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She'd gotten the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets, The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. The boy did not move. Aoko's right shin connected firmly and stopped. Yeah. A shockwave rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Aoko had felt when she destroyed the puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, she had to have severely damaged his spine. As she looked at him to confirm her kill, the boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow.
お姉さんの右足は確か噛み切った方だ。
Yeah. So what if it is, huh?
それで首を狙ったのはすごいよね。女の人は本能的に自分の体をかばうものだってトウコさんは言ってたのに。けど残念。せっかくの勇気も無駄でした。僕の体毛の質はこの姿でも変わらない。産毛だけでもお姉さんの蹴りを受け止めることはできる。
That's kind of OP. The only one hurt between the two was Aoko. The leg she had lodged in his neck was totally numb, like it had been chopped clean off with a hatchet.
それに少しだけ迷いがあったな。くっつけたばっかりの足だからかばったでしょ。
Yeah, maybe.
人間が僕の相手をするならそんなこと気にしちゃいけないのに。ああ、でも。
The boy smiled, basking in Aoko's shock and awe. She couldn't free her leg. No doubt as soon as she regained her footing, he would tear her stomach open.
どっちにしろミンチだから気にしても仕方がないよね。
Aoko? Well, what's the plan?
もったいない。せっかく治ったばかりなのに。
Well, yeah, that's, yeah, no, you're, well, you're fucked, Aoko. Aoko was not sure, well, I mean, Sojuro could do something whenever he gets here. Even though he's half an hour behind him. Aoko wasn't sure, but it felt like he had sunk his finger into the flesh of her right leg. He was right about her leg. She barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack, and was now back in the same horrid state. Except this time, instead of being torn to pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but just the look of it was enough to horrify her. The way it was crumpled, all that blood. Any normal person would have died from shock. As if thinking about someone else, Aoko considered how cruel magic crests could be.
あれ？まだ目が死んでない。
Yeah?
あんまり苦しめたくないんだけど。頑丈なのも考えものだよ。
Yeah,
お
sure.
姉さん。
Don't want to torture my ass. Yeah, okay. Okay, buddy. The boy thrust his hand out at Aoko's chest. Her consciousness flickered from the sudden pain of a stake. No, a child's fist piercing her torso. The scenery flew by. She soared through the air like a rag doll tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she tumbled through the air and hit the ground hard. Oh, there's the red. It might be blood, though. Her right leg was crushed. Her chest caved in. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp of breath left her wanting more. Was this what it was like to see stars? Yeah, maybe. The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could still feel his fist. Leisurely, the boy strolled across the snow toward Aoko's broken body, his red tongue gliding over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe, his eyes filled with glee. Aoko bit down the temptation to drift away. Even though she could find no reason to fight on, the snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The fist-sized crater in her chest and her mangled leg made sure of that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, her magic crests frantically worked to resuscitate her heart. But why? The sight of Toko in the distance was the only thing that kept her conscious. Why does Toko look... Why does Toko look like she's... horrified almost? Like, Toko doesn't look happy about this. Her sister looked surprised for some reason. Like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon. That wasn't like her. Wondering what it was, Aoko tried to stay conscious. Feebly trying to raise her head. Oh, is Toko looking at Sojuro? Oh, she looked to where Toko was staring. Why did she look like that when she was so close to victory? I wonder. His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragmented and disturbing images kept returning, and he desperately pushed them to the back of his mind. They were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away into an unseen corner of his consciousness. Right now, he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm, he repeated to himself. He had not stopped for a second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought to what he would do next. So many traffic lights. So many people. It was Christmas. There was no way he would find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option. It was why he had put his trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out of his chest, pounding like a hammer against a fire bell. He had no intention of giving up yet, but he couldn't seem to calm himself down. In this precarious condition, even surrender seemed too great of an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No, calm. He needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware he was powerless. The best thing he could do was to keep his head on straight. While he wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. The forest was faintly lit by the moon. That was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed the two sets of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like at the amusement park. Even if you go, there's nothing you can do for them. The only effect her admonishing words had was to hasten his pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his doubt in the kicked-up snow behind him. Of course he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best, he would be useless, and at the worst, he would be a liability. He recalled the binding spell placed on him at the church. It didn't matter. His body told him he would regret being torn to pieces less than if he did nothing. You know, I personally couldn't agree with that sentiment, but, you know, I respect it. Not once did his legs fail him as he ran through the woods, though it felt as though his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within. What the? Oh, the egg. I was like, I did not recognize that as Humpty for a second, or whatever it was called. Just like back at the amusement park. He was beyond reason or circumstances now. Ultimately, I just want to help her. That was all he really desired. His heart pounded with vigor. As he ran through the dark, wintry forest, only one thing gnawed at his mind. Not concern for the girls, nor anger toward Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs. Screams of agony like childbirth. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. The nightmare was tenacious. Never again. Never, ever again did he want to see something like that again, if he could help it. Just ahead was the forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the old school building like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. That was why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? With that thought in mind, he arrived at the clearing. Somehow, his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion, no inertia, just blankness, like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But the nausea and dizziness from the first time, the pathetic whining of the last few weeks, the doubts clouding his mind, they were all gone, displaced entirely from his mind by an even stronger emotion. His heart pounded with the force of a sledgehammer. It was a primal sound, loud enough to bring him to his senses. Oh boy. Whoa. Why does he look so serious? Are we gonna get some badassery here? Out of Sojuro? Sojuro stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Although his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boys, his concentration was focused inward. Be calm. Be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Aoko and Alice's crushing defeat. Aoko is lying face up in the snow. Her right leg bright red and crushed at the thigh. Her eyes were glazed over, but Sojuro could tell she was still bravely fighting. Judging by her spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to her chest or back. Sojuro deduced it was most likely both. Alice's injuries seemed less serious than Aoko's, but she lay motionless on the ground nevertheless. She was lying across from Aoko, face down in the snow, arms out in front as though pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood the figure of the maid she'd seen before. Paying her no mind, Sojuro began to walk forward. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced toward Aoko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look of worry flickered in her eyes. Okay?
お兄さんもその人たちの仲間?
Yeah, you can say that. The child werewolf spoke amicably, confident in his victory. And perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. Sojuro ignored him and kept walking toward Aoko. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. Still, Sojuro carried on. The beast's feelings were the last thing on his mind. Once he reached Aoko, he looked down at her with a pained expression on his face. Strangely, he was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage to say was,
なってないぞ、生徒会長。行く時ぐらい声をかけるものだろう。
Okay. His awkward remark was half scolding and half affectionate.
このバカ。
Yeah. Despite the pain in her stomach, Aoko was able to throw an insult his way.
安心した。余裕あるじゃないか、青崎。
His voice brightened, as if buying her bravado. The truth was that she barely had the strength to live. Despite that, Sojuro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Something like, "See, Ozaki? You're too tough to die, even when someone kills you." Yeah.
あんた。
As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. Why is she blushing? Sojuro heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. Aoko knew because his carefree-sounding words did not match his expressionless face.
何のつもりで?
Being a hero? Maybe? Huh? Before she could say doing, she coughed painfully. Sojuro pressed his finger to his lips and nodded. Aoko couldn't quite believe it, but it looked as though Sojuro had gestured to her to not speak.
だってほら、状況はあの時と一緒だ。君がやられたら、次はこっちの番なんだろう。だから協力をしに来たんじゃないか。
You know, this is a bit different than the puppet.
まあ、何もできないのも、あの時と変わってはいないんだけど。
Aoko didn't know what to say. She could only look up at him, amazed and awed. The werewolf stared at them, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason, punishable by death. Had Toko not been there, he would have sunk his teeth into Sojuro's neck by now. He was sure he had been intimidating enough. However, his prey did not show any signs of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat. I don't know about that.
まあ、誰でもいいんだけど、筋張った肉は歯ごたえがあっていいし、何より食い出がある。先にそのお兄さんから始めても構わないよね。
The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sojuro raised a hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected. Paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him.
匂うな。
It could be the blood, or it could be the dog over there. Everyone present was confused. No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him.
へえ。何が匂うっていうのかな、お兄さん。
Bao's voice retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Sojuro turned to face the boy just a short distance from him.
品のない肉の匂いがする。これだから犬は嫌いなんだ。
Oh shit! Oh shit! Ain't no way! His voice was filled with disgust and contempt. Sojuro was mainly speaking to himself. But the werewolf boy had never felt so insulted. Hey, yo. He did not just do that. Even if that wasn't Sojuro's intent at all. In a moment, the wind picked up, perhaps signaling a change in the werewolf's mood. A fiery gale whipped around, carving patterns in the snow.
Sojuro!
Sensing he was about to be killed, Aoko desperately tried to move. But her broken body would not respond. After hearing Sojuro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sojuro stood there, firmly and unfazed. The little blonde boy's well of patience had run dry.
そうか。要するに、僕が子供だからって舐めてるんだね。
I don't think he is.
お兄さんは。
The fuck? Okay. His time playing human was over. Enraged, the boy transformed. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting from his pale flesh. His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs. His hands grew claws. Drawing from the magical energy in the air, he transformed into a preternatural beast, a wolf in the shape of a human.
重化の許しは出していないぞ、ベオ!
Toko yelled at him, but the werewolf didn't respond. He only huffed deep breaths of hot air.
バカな話が。
Uh-huh. That was all Sojuro could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such a transformation was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself. Seeing his prey's reaction satisfied the werewolf, and his maw twisted into a satisfied grin. He was a strange one, this guy, but meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a sigh of exasperation before speaking.
それじゃあ本当に犬そのものじゃないか。
Oh, dude, Sojuro, bro. Do you understand what's happening right now? Do you? You could hear a pin drop even in the snow. Aoko, Alice, and Toko were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare a werewolf down, but insult it to its face? Yeah. Yeah. They simply couldn't believe it. Jesus Christ, Sojuro. Bale was pissed. It was too late. Any trace of the wolf's pride or dignity faded away. The onlookers finally realized that the wolf was serious. But Toko's command fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lunge, his emerald eyes fixed on Sojuro, not 30 feet in front of him. A mere 30 feet. A half second was all he needed. Another half second to bring his claw down and slice his prey from head to toe. A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as he exploded towards Sojuro. 1 second. A golden blur swept forth in a furious gust, too fast for eyes to follow. In the face of unworldly speed, there was only one thing to do. Sojuro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of the incoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life on around 3 feet of distance. In the blink of an eye, death would be upon him. Yet he didn't show the slightest indication he intended to avoid the lunging behemoth. The wolf's forelegs slammed into the ground with earth-shaking fury. His back muscles tensed up so much they seemed barely contained in his frame as he swept a raised paw downward. Sojuro's small step neatly evaded the claws. But he had a different motive. He was merely positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on but one thing. One point to aim for. One mind. One breath. He picked the perfect opening in the wolf's torso, the precise microsecond between contraction and relaxation. That one point alone was the crack in the dam of life. He punches his diaphragm? He punched the werewolf in its chest with his feeble human strength. There was a dull thud and a burst of blood. The twisted flesh and gore were all Sojuro's own. Wait, did it actually work? The werewolf's raised claw convulsed. From an insignificant impact, the beast's body was the first to collapse, then his spirit. What? There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaws to try and pull air into his lungs. Did he collapse his windpipe? Gasping, he began to topple forward. The slender figure slipped around to his flank. The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring his mangled left arm, the silhouette whirled around and drove his right elbow into the collapsing werewolf's back. There was another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated to the exact same spot the first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. This time, the blood that flew into the air belonged to the gasping wolf. I'm sorry, what the fuck? You are not human. I refuse to believe that. The werewolf fell to the ground, choking on his own blood. He did not get up. He showed no sign of life. It was over. There was no remorse, no hesitation in that brief act of violence. The perfect, furious golden beast lay still, felled in a mere 3 seconds. Yeah, that's all of their expressions. That's me. Like, what? There is zero chance he is human. At least not a normal human. I refuse to believe that. No sane person would have bet on this outcome. His breathing calm, the victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body. Yeah. Did I say victim? I mean victor. That's, yeah, me too. I wanted that too, Bayo. Even as the beast lay crumpled in the snow, he could not grasp what had happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. As it was, this was a trifling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, his body would heal as well. It wasn't as if he had been struck by magecraft exceeding his own mystical nature. This was a little different than a grazed knee. Which is what was so strange. Your heart doesn't stop from a grazed knee. I don't know. The werewolf frantically searched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claws. But what had come after that? Given the right transformation, he knew he could withstand even a cannon blast. How had a puny human dropped him? Wait. Before that, he had to figure out exactly what his opponent did to him. The moment he got in close, yes, he had felt a small impact. The attack was so accurate that it probably only affected his heart. Ridiculous. Even if that was possible, there was no way that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he thought about it, nothing added up. The answer was out of reach for a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain. He had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, the flash of white. After that, as he was falling over, he took another blow to his back. That was the one that disrupted his heart. Could lose? Indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body in indignation at this unfair conclusion. Yeah, well, he ain't no werewolf and he ain't no mage. He just... I don't know what he is. I doubt he's human. But... yeah, no, You sure about that? I mean, I can agree with that. It doesn't make any sense. Apparently Sojuro. Yeah, apparently this guy, so... Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground, he glared at his enemy to his side. Yeah, well, you did. The very next moment, an unknown type of pain coursed down his spine. It had eyes, cold eyes, staring, piercing, colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. Its inhumanly powerful attack had mangled them beyond recognition. If it was in pain, it would have cried out. But it was silent. Was it ever alive? Those dead eyes. He'd seen eyes like those before. Those eyes without hatred, without joy, without any feeling behind them at all. It was a mindless insect. Ah! The werewolf's hair stood on end. What was this creeping chill crawling up his spine? I don't know. Having never experienced fear, the werewolf didn't know what had become of him. Despite countless clashes against other mystics, it had been a human that broke him. He knew beasts even larger than himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. He did not know this. He never met, much less imagined, a human-sized bug. The chill down the werewolf's spine was so vicious it threatened to split him in two. If he moved even an inch, it would crush his skull underfoot. In spite of the despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that his opponent would not move at all. This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature. No. A stone that held no animal instincts. It masqueraded as a human. The contradiction grated against his heart, his values. A phantom pain born of an unknown emotion, fear. It wasn't just grating, it was like many needles, slowly digging into his heart. This had been his first taste of doubt, of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world after all. There were irrationalities and questions you didn't want to hear the answers to. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now, he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An elemental might have even felt sorry for him if it were here to watch. How sad, born complete, yet lost in the lunacy of the human world. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling in mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes, those human eyes looking straight through him. And then, the boy realized the only reason he was still alive. Even with both arms broken, the human could have finished him off with its legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not revenge for trying to kill him. This was revenge for the wounds he inflicted on the girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat tighten. His breathing was frantic. This human had no sense of self. It had no concern for its own safety when it stood between him and the girls. That must be why it had no hate or fear, or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact that he was alive had nothing to do with the human's will. The fight was machine-like, so was its judgment. An eye for an eye and nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended differently. Maybe. I don't even know anymore. He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such a possibility. He had never had to, because he was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Agony kicked him hard in the gut. No matter the mystic, nothing was immune from injury, from decay. The boy finally understood an obvious law of the world. Or rather, he had been taught. Those eyes, they wouldn't stop staring down at him. Retribution was a universal law. He was now painfully aware of that fact. And yet, the one who brought form to this idea was this human. The pain of defeat, the pain in his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Pain. The impossibility of it all had shattered his perfect world. It ate at him, consumed every fiber of his being. The doubt made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand. He had not been made to face the death of another, but his own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form. Quietly, he shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Still lying in the snow, Aoko choked on her words, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded.
Sojuro, anta.
Yeah, he's badass, apparently. She couldn't hide the trembling in her voice.
Nani?
Speaking in his usual way, Sojuro nonchalantly turned toward her.
何って、今自分が何をしたか分かってんの?
Yeah. She shouted angrily, as though he had done something wrong. Sojuro looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He lowered his gaze back to the wolf boy. Knitting his brow in dismay, Sojuro finally realized what Aoko was referring to.
心外だな。青崎は分かってると思ってた。
What? He looked at her in disappointment.
分かってるって何をよ?
Feeling slightly affronted, Aoko responded curtly. Sojuro sighed.
山じゃ熊はそう珍しいものじゃない。以前確かに言ったじゃないか。
はOkay. Aoko's jaw dropped. It took her a moment to process what he had just said. She recalled some meaningless conversation or other from who knows when.
君、もしかして俺をバカにしているのか？まったく、なんで熊を倒すためなんかに修行しなくちゃいけないんだ。
Yes, now she thought about it. They had spoken about that. He'd mentioned being familiar with large beasts, and she couldn't deny that she'd heard him utter some anachronistic nonsense about training to deal with them, which meant he was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. If he'd lived the sort of life that involves run-ins with wild bears, then a man-wolf might have only been surprising, but not particularly frightening. Aoko hung her head. After all this time, who was it that really made no sense? You know, that... I don't know. I don't know anymore.
あなたの勝ちよ、Sojuro.
It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or exasperation. Either way, as she slouched in the snow, Aoko spoke quietly enough so only she could hear her words. Toko, on the other hand, understood exactly what had transpired. Bayo lay fallen, now just a sobbing boy. And another boy stood over him with 2 shattered arms. Near fatally wounded, Aoko and Alice still couldn't stand, but had recovered enough to breathe. As for Toko, she had only a few tricks up her sleeve, maybe 3 or 4 more runes at best. The magic crests on her back were unusable. She could use the remaining magical energy from the field imprisoning her grandfather, but that would be stupid. Yeah, probably. If she released her grandfather, she would lose ownership of the sacred ground. Yeah. Failing to defeat Aoko and Alice now would mean starting over from square one, and she couldn't afford that. The sibling rivalry had to end. Toko had gambled everything on her surprise attack. Using the fact she was still in Aozaki to infiltrate Misaki's defenses. For 3 years, she had labored, selling her work to the association. And she had used 20 years' worth of hair to mobilize an army of familiars. It was now or never.
だが、私は失敗した。
She had overestimated the werewolf's power. It should have been enough. Against mages alone, Beowulf by himself would have been enough to ensure complete victory. But things did not always go according to plan. Beo's incredible strength was conditional. She knew he was not infallible, so why hadn't she prepared a contingency plan? His heart is cold as ice. So her heart is cold as ice. Toko stared at Sojuro, who stood tall. His arms were a hideous mess. The arm he used to strike Beo head-on barely even resembled an arm. His bones were bent out of shape. His muscles were torn to shreds. To say his arm was simply broken would be a gross understatement. Streams of crimson ran down his other arm onto the white snow. The elbow he drove into Beo's back was likely shattered, and his muscle and tendons torn up to his shoulder. Judging from the state of his arms, it was doubtful he'd be able to use them again. Worse than his arms were his left leg, and no doubt his internal organs too. He had used the leg to take the full brunt of Beo's charge. At a glance, it looked fine, but it was now just a useless hunk of meat attached to his torso. His insides were worse. Supporting the weight of Beo had ruptured his spine, causing widespread internal bleeding. Okay, but how is he talking normally to Aoko? I don't know if he's as damaged as you think he is, Toko. Basically, he was a dead man standing. A bird with clipped wings. Living like that would not be living at all. He could barely stand, let alone fight again. Are you sure about that? In contrast, the collapsed werewolf was unscathed. Only once did he coughed up blood. The majority of the pool of red on the snow was Sojuro's. A crimson tapestry telling the story of the boy who stood strong and defeated a werewolf.
当然だ。衝撃には反動が伴う。
Huh?
拳を振るうのなら相応の負担がある。まして相手は人狼。走ってくる鉄の壁を真っ向から殴るようなものだ。
Oh, I don't know about that. A freight train wouldn't have even been dented, and he would have been a complete and utter, mess of. Well, assuming the freight train was moving. If the freight train wasn't moving, then. Perhaps he had known what would happen. Animals instinctively limit their strength in order to protect their body. Compensating for physical weakness with intellect and technique was humanity's forte, and that clash had shown humans at their very best. And yet, it had also been beyond human. He had attacked without concern for his own safety. Without self-preservation in mind, he could go beyond human capability. Enough to strike through the steel-like fur of a legendary werewolf. But who would have thought that a beast, able to withstand a shot from a tank, would be felled by a mere human?
いや、違う。ためらうことなく殴りつけたから壊れたのではない。初めからあれは壊すことを前提にしていたな。
He sacrificed his entire body to destroy Bao's heart. Toko felt a chill come over her as she went over in her head what had transpired. It should have been a nightmarish scene, but she was captivated by that supreme display of physical rationality. I mean, yeah, it's pretty impressive, I guess. From the outside looking in, she had witnessed not an accident, but a rational consequence. In that instant, the boy had put his entire being into piercing Bao's chest. As soon as he laid eyes on Aoko and Alice, he had committed himself fully to the task. He sized Bao up, synchronized his breathing, found his weak point, and calculated the exact position, timing, and distance he would need to hold his ground. He knew what he had to do to win, and did it with everything he had. It had nothing to do with instinct. A wild creature would not have tried to beat something it could not. Only a human would. Oh my god, I can't talk. Only a human would risk his life when faced with the impossible. That contradiction fed his attack. He twisted his body from his heel to his neck to focus his energy. If Bao had simply tried to run Sojuro down, the werewolf would probably have won. But the beast wanted to rip him to shreds. Or rather, he was baited into doing so. After Bao charged, when he planted his feet, he raised his claw, then swung it downward, putting himself off balance. His pulse was erratic, his movement wild in that moment. He was vulnerable. That was when Sojuro made his move. The beast had overwhelming power, but it was sloppy. Whereas the human concentrated all of his meager power into a single point. That was how the human shifted the balance in his favor. The follow-up elbow attack would rupture Bao's heart. It was a graceless second strike. A sloppy blow no different from Bao's. The elbow was only able to penetrate the beast's golden fur because of the first attack to his chest.
あの時点でベオは丸裸にされていた。無敵の人狼がその機能の一切を休止させられた。つまり
The strike wasn't meant to break, but to disable. All living creatures had weaknesses. No matter how strong the creature, it had weak points and weak moments. Not just physically, but mentally too. A time when they aren't in their best shape, unable to focus or find motivation. Sickness or a lack of food, or a lack of sleep or food, for example, can cause the body's rhythm to go out of sync. For a variety of reasons, intelligent beings risk losing their ability to function properly. Legendary beasts were no exception.
弱点、欠点をつく魔術なら知っているが、全てを投げ打って弱点を生むとはな。
The boy's strike to the heart was not an attempt to kill Bayo. It was designed to create a weakness in something that had none. The elbow attack took advantage of that break in Bayo's invulnerability.
加えて、笑えることに不意打ちですらない。ベオの神経の伝達速度なら、毒が当たった瞬間に感知し対応できる。だが、そもそもそれを毒と認識できなければ、変形のしようもない。
Because Sojuro doesn't... It's like Sojuro had no, like... He had no, like, feeling behind his attack. So, like... yeah, like with Yuika couldn't even sense Sojuro. She was like, wait, what? Someone else is here? And I guess same thing with Bayo. He just didn't realize there was any ill intent because he was just... Sojuro didn't have ill intent. He just was... giving payback. Straight, like, plain and simple. Which is, again, frightening, in a way.
毒ではないものが毒になるなんて落とし穴を誰が教えてやれるものか。
She was frustrated, to say the least. The boy was totally committed, utterly selfless. He bet his life on that single moment without expecting a single thing in return. That boy had acquired the experience and skill to do such a thing. It was not a miracle of luck, nor a miracle of passion. It was not talent, tenacity, or hatred. Without constant, intense training, no one could destroy their own body on a whim like that.
子供には相手が悪かったようね。
Apparently, yeah. Seeing Bayo cowering in the snow, Toko was disappointed in her own lack of foresight. She had used him for his talent alone, ignoring his inexperience. If Bayo was not a child, his life experience might have given him the strength to bounce back and devour Sojuro after regenerating.
ベオを責めるべきか、それとも君を評価すべきなのか。
I don't know. Maybe both? Toko quietly lifted her left hand. Nobody noticed. Standing far away, the boy standing there looked like a hunter from a picture book. He had a slender build, but that was likely because he intentionally shed any excess. Given what she just witnessed, his cluelessness had to be a part of an act the act of a hunter. As she thought to herself, she suddenly remembered the first thing that crossed her mind the first time they spoke.
そうだったな。だが、それは忘れていたかったよ、宗十郎君。
No sooner had she felt a slither of sentiment, she returned to her unshakable resolve. She was raised as the heir to the Awazaki household, taught never to question the morality of her actions. That was why, even now, she knew exactly what she had to do.
でも、よかった。
I mean, Toko is still there, you know. Sojuro muttered, unmoving, perhaps because of the pain in his broken arms. He didn't look at Aoko. Instead, his gaze was focused on Alice, who was lying prone some way away. Aoko thought he looked lonely.
よかったって何がよ。
She asked, spurring him on. They were mere steps from each other, close enough to touch hands. Their quiet voices carried in the stillness.
私たちが無事だったからなんて言ったら怒るわよ。
She wasn't joking. Sojuro turned away from her slightly, shaking his head.
口にするのは3度目だけど、青崎の心配はしていないんだ。いや、さっきはちょっと意識が飛んだようなんだけど。
With the amount of pain you're probably in, yeah, I understand. Yeah. He said as an embarrassed smile crossed his face. The first time he outright fainted, but the second time his passion pushed the dizziness and nausea aside. Oh, he's talking about when he came into the clearing. Oh, okay. He just calmly did what he could as best he could. Nevertheless, no matter how calm he tried to be, deep within festered a very real rage. Yeah.
じゃあ何が良かったの、宗十郎。
Aoko's voice had a slight tinge of annoyance. Sojuro responded.
だって、ようやく約束が守れた。そっちだけが約束を守ってるのに、こっちは果たせなかっただろ。
Well, huh?
それがずっと気になっていたんだ。その機会があって、本当に良かった。
Oh, it's talking about the House of Mirrors fight, where he was unable to distract the puppet. Alright, I'm gonna assume that's what he means. His relief expressed itself as a small but heartfelt smile. Aoko listened, astonished. For a moment, she couldn't recall what promise Sojuro was talking about. When she remembered what he was talking about, what she had told him all that time ago in the amusement park, her mind went blank.
あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる?
He proposed the deal, but in the end, he hadn't been of any use. It must have been eating away at him this entire time. Aoko had considered the agreement binding, but only for herself.
あんなどうでもいいことを。
Yeah, apparently. But I mean, he did hold up his end of the bargain, kinda. Because when the puppet came out and tried to attack Aoko after she collapsed from defeating Flat Snark, he like, yeah, he beat the puppet. So in a way, he did hold up his end of the deal. So it's like, I don't know, still. She muttered in disbelief. Sojuro gave a nod and affirmed with a tiny voice.
約束は自分のために果たすものだって教えてくれたのは青崎だ。だから君が守っている限り俺も守らないといけない。はあ、ずっと俺はそうしたかったんだ。
As if listening to a confessional, Aoko stayed silent. She couldn't find the words to say anyway. Sojuro proved ever the enigma. Taking such a trivial promise so seriously, and speaking so sincerely about something so basic. She couldn't wrap her head around how he had beaten a werewolf, but his personality? That was the true mystery. It was no use trying to figure that out now. To Aoko Ozaki, he was a riddle wrapped in an enigma wrapped in a conundrum.
それじゃあ借りは返したから帳尻はゼロだ。これで貸し借りはなしだぞ、青崎。
Sojuro said lightly, perhaps attempting to break the silence. Normally this would have passed her by, but she saw his kindness for what it was.
足がついたのはこっちの方よ。これじゃあどうやって返していいかわからないじゃん。
Are y'all forgetting Toko is right there? Sojuro nodded in happy agreement.
それより青崎の足なんか塞がってるな。
Yeah, this time around, she only had the leg to heal. Well, and her chest, but she wasn't completely ripped apart like before.
もしかしてもう立てるのか？
She shot him a stubborn look as if to say, well, duh, obviously. Aww. Again, y'all are forgetting about something, but okay. Ever amazed by her grit, he offered her his right hand. Take it, Aoko. Take it. Despite being broken at the elbow, to Aoko it looked as sturdy as ever. By all appearances, it was beyond recovery, and would be for the rest of his life. Even so, he seemed to be able to ignore the pain for Aoko's sake.
ほんと、あんたってバカ。
Yeah. She uttered under her breath, looking up at him. As much as she hated to admit, she couldn't refuse his hand. Resigning herself, she reached out to Sojuro. But her hand never reached his. A small bell chimed. A line of... No! The blood, no. No. If Toko deadass just surprise attacked him when his back was turned, I'm mad. It cut through his waist like a guillotine. Yeah. I'll be back. I'm gonna go calm down. Okay. I went, punched the wall. Not really. Like, slapped the wall. And you know, I still don't know how to feel. I'm kind of angry. I'm leaning towards angry, I guess. It's just, I don't know, it's that's a shitty way to go, to be honest. Like, we get a badass scene with him and then immediately just murder. Like, I don't know. Yeah, let's just continue. Pieces began to fall. What were those things dropping before her eyes? Aoko could not remember who they belonged to.
Sojuro?
That used to be his name, right? The name of whoever lay in the red snow in front of her. His face now rested on the ground beneath her chin. The smell of viscera assaulted her nostrils. A river of blood flowed from what used to be a stomach. It happened so fast. Too fast for her mind to process, in fact. Her only solace was he probably didn't suffer. How could she think that so calmly, especially after what she had witnessed? Her blood boiled at her own stupidity. Which begged the question, how should she treat the one who did this? With fire and fury. She had used all her anger on herself. She had none left to give to anyone else. But this hatred was hers and hers alone. Her problem was this: could she muster the emotions from this drought of anger? She wasn't sure, but the thought of hunting them down made her smile unconsciously in anticipation. Aoko turned to the old school building to where Toko was standing with her arm out in front of her. She had used the same rune magecraft she used against Aoko and Alice, except Sojuro had no magic crests. Toko's amber eyes were narrowed, staring intensely at the fallen corpse. As to what she might have been feeling, Aoko couldn't care less. Even if Toko felt regret, Aoko would never forgive her for as long as she drew breath.
やはり君からこうしておくべきだったな。
Toko wasn't speaking to Aoko, but to the dead body. There was no response. No clouds of breath. Coming to terms that he was truly dead, Aoko pushed herself up to her feet.
案外無様ね。
Facing her sister in the distance, Aoko spoke hoarsely.
でも正しい選択だわ。これで勝負はやり直しだもの。
Funny thing is, I know for a fact Aoko doesn't believe that. she's like, no, you made the wrong choice, bitch. But she ain't gonna say it. She turned away from Sojuro and stared at Aoko. They stood far apart. Farther apart than their positions made them seem. Though there was nothing left to say, the two of them exchanged words in respect of the fact they were once sisters.
ああ、魔術刻印という私の切り札はこの通りで、人狼というカードもお前の切り札の前に敗れ去った。だが、そちらも刻印を使い切り、彼も今息絶えた。
Calling Sojuro a trump card, huh? You know?
互いに決定打はなくなったわけだ。
そうね。私も甘かった。人狼が再起不能になった時点で、あなたが敗北を認めたなんて勝手に思い上がるんだから。
Yeah.
本来ならそうなるんだけど、あなたがそんなに諦めがいいのなら、この町に戻ってきはしないものね。本当に甘かった。
It was clear to Toko that Aoko was trying to suppress her emotions. Aoko was right, though. Her sister had counted on Beowulf to succeed. As mages, no matter what cards Aoko or Alice had in their hands, they were helpless against the werewolf. But then, Sojuro had shown up, and Toko couldn't win as long as he was around. Unfortunately, though he had stopped the werewolf, he had been defenseless against the mage. So she had to kill him. With Sojuro out of the way, no one could hold Beo back. It would take time for him to recover, but as long as his wounds were only mental, they could be overcome. Alice and Aoko could try to attack again before he recovered, but Alice was being kept in check by the poison, so Toko still had the advantage. Stalemate still. The battle would drag on. Unless Aoko were to use it. Powdery snow began to whirl around. The air around her wailed. It was magecraft that transcended all that was mystical. The gate to miracles beyond human comprehension, ready to show itself.
やる気のようね、青子。
Toko released the crests maintaining the fields. With that, her grandfather would be freed, and the barriers around Misaki would be restored. Which was not what Toko wanted, but it was that or forfeit her life. The crests at her disposal were now twice as powerful as her sisters. Aoko gazed at this new threat with her eyes half closed. None of this was her concern. Far removed from the situation, she was searching for something hidden deeper inside herself, desperate to reach it. There it was, an odd feeling like picking up algae. It was not the fire of emotion. It was not solid nor great. It must have been what people meant by rising to the occasion. Abandoning thought itself, Aoko held on to that feeling as she stared at her enemy.
いいわよ、Toko.
She spoke softly, yet more loudly than a scream.
お望み通り、本当の魔法を見せてあげる。
Focusing her power into the dim crest on her right arm, she weaved the words together. A single incantation. A final heartfelt farewell. A brilliant blue-colored magic, taking time back to when a certain someone had been blessed. Huh? To put it simply, magecraft is human wisdom. It is the world as we know it. Magic is a singularity that exists beyond either of those. At the beginning, the first changed all. Next, the second recognized the many. In answer, the third showed the future. Tethered, the fourth concealed itself. And the final fifth had long since lost its significance. Someone once said, had it only ended at the third. Magecraft is the study of history, feats of our making, and life orbiting the planet. But true magic is the providence of a god beyond the heavens. Why do those who stand on Earth extol the virtues of miracles beyond humankind and the planet? This was an undeniable sin. Magic was the enemy of humanity. That is why those who obtain a new magic are killed by the Red Shadow.
聞け、万物の霊長。
Aoko's voice resonated through and high above the winter skies. The air began to fracture, turning the scenery to broken glass. Toko wondered whether she should fight or flee. She decided to try and keep her feelings in check and see this through. But the object of her obsession for so many years was right in front of her. Rationality was slipping from her grasp. Both of their fates were now uncertain. Toko had an overwhelming advantage when it came to her crests and the terrain. When it came to true magic, however, if the Awazaki magic was anything like Alice Kunji's fairy tale monsters, then mage strength was not a part of the equation. At this point, it was Toko against magic itself. And there was no winning against truth. The transcendence and idiosyncrasy of true magic rendered things like magecraft irrelevant.
だが
Toko stared at her sister, wondering if she could actually use it. Her proclamation lacked conviction. She had raised her voice, but that was out of discipline. It had not been the arrogant conviction to sacrifice someone else for her own gain. Having not been chosen to inherit it, Toko couldn't imagine what the magic in her sister was. Only that it was a force violent enough to change the world. No human mind could withstand the audacity required to make an enemy of the world itself. Especially not someone as indecisive as her sister. The power of magic would surely cripple her. You sure about that?
So, いや、
い
Feeling Toko's eyes on her, Aoko doubted herself. She couldn't help but hesitate. Terror gripped her heart tighter.
でもだからって
She couldn't run away forever. Her hesitation and terror meant she would never forgive herself for stopping now. Closing her eyes, she pushed herself into the final stage. Time stopped, like a light being switched off. She submerged herself in her own darkness. Everything froze. Only she moved. Everything around her disappeared as she passed a limitless stream of stars. And as soon as she did, she wanted to disappear into the empty, thoughtlessness place she arrived in without any answers. Not again. The red shadow will surely come this time. Suddenly, I saw a new memory. Possibly because I used another to make the trade for. I heard a familiar yet new sound. I wish for nothing. I seek nothing. Only to fuse with the consciousness that hurtles backwards in time to zero. The sound, the bitter, sad, meaningless pulls me by my hair. Meaninglessness pulls me by my hair, but I have to resist. The red ghost is always going to be my biggest hurdle. I must forget the value of life. I must forget the dignity of death. The sound persists. It's got nothing to do with this journey. It's just an external distraction. And yet, I think I finally understand. I know what noise has been making me so uneasy. What the... The unsettling whispers were directed at me. Or perhaps the red shadow was perplexed by the quiet soul listening to it. It glares at me, its eyes full of hatred. How could I be so unprepared? Don't tell me. You can't be serious. You're going to turn me into your prey for that? For what? That is your everything. You have nothing else. The effect of rewinding. The decision to never say never. His prime. His meaningless life. She negated it. She used her superior power to negate that sound which was an absolute rule to him. Just brushed it aside, like it was a cobweb. The sound disappeared. A new one replaced it. I wish for nothing. I want nothing. A pure, obedient heart. That's why you get nothing. A life of falsehood, led by affirmation. This is ridiculous. My legs move toward the future, but they stop. Change of plans. I'm taking a different path. Nothing's changed. It's just something that's made me real mad. How can I put it? You call this the past, you idiot? If I don't complain about something to someone, I'll explode. Even if it's just to the voice, or to he who hears it, or to the part of me who just stays quiet and watches, or to the one who did that to him. With no answer, I open my eyes. Aoko released everything she had dragged up. As for what was there, or what she saw, she couldn't remember. All she held on to was the fury that burned in her heart. Pushed on by something she did not know what, she opened the door to magic. The change was extraordinary. Beneath her, the snow vanished, replaced by a small patch of lush green grass. This ground had never existed under the frozen blanket. It had been rewritten into a new landscape. The very elements rejected her, as if the world itself was fighting back. The electrical discharge lashed at her body. This miracle threatened to destroy the world. The world had to protect itself. It moved to expunge her. Pain scorched her every cell, trying to tear away her consciousness. But she didn't falter. All this pain and this loneliness was to take her to the root. Ever since inheriting true magic, she had suffered this torture time and time again. She contended against the voiceless protest of the cosmos. The burden engulfed her retinas and nerves in flames. And then, light. She finally understood. She remembers why she came back, and what she wanted to scream. A censuring voice told her to stop. At the edges of oblivion, her hand touched the true form of magic. The snarling red shadow was there, telling her it was no use. So much doubt, so much fear, but such things mean nothing to her. To me, I don't care about a magician's obligations or the destruction of mankind. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I only have one reason for doing anything right now. God, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I just want to save him.
No, save.
A blue whirlwind whisked up around her. Casting aside her doubt and sorrow, the magician played her trick upon the world.
Something tells me Toko done fucked up.
Time flowed backward. Childhood memories were overwritten. White flowers appeared as far as the eye could see. Brighter than snow, they rippled like a wave across the world, devouring it.
Did her clothes change? You see her in the back left there, right? It did.
That's the pyramid. Order has fallen to ruin. What was declared had come to be. In this time and place, alone, the fifth magic made itself known. In the blink of an eye, the snowy clearing had transformed. A sea of fully bloomed white flowers blanketed the grounds. Only the dilapidated school building and the bare winter trees signified this was the original world. The once cold wind now blew with a pleasant warmth across the landscape. Even the night sky was once again teeming with stars. If one reached out, one could almost touch them. It was a mix of comfort and solitude, quiet enough to carry the sound of insects flying through the air. A scene far removed from the impurity and grief of humans. A world with nothing, yet one that needed nothing. It was his most precious memory. The winter tundra had changed into a spring meadow. Aoko's so-called true magic confused Toko. Sure, it was pleasing to the eye, but she wanted to see something less idyllic. Aoko's spell was clearly no small feat, but the surrounding mana had not changed. Better to be confused, though, than ideal with something like Alice Konji's flat snark, or than deal with something like her. The only changes seemed to be the flower field and Aoko's appearance. She seemed to have received some enhancement to her physical form, but it would never be enough to match Toko. You sure about that?
確かに魔法といえば魔法だが
Toko said with a hint of annoyance.
あいにくとお互い夢見る年頃ではないんだまさかそれで終わりではないだろ
Aoko began walking through the sea of flowers. But she was not heading toward Toko.
いえ、これでおしまいよ。私も、あなたも。
Aoko's words sent a wave of unease through Toko. Her sister's voice seemed different somehow. It was mostly the same in pitch, so it had to be the tone. No, that was the same too. Something was off. Could it be? It was then Toko noticed something else that had changed. Not just Aoko in the clearing. The severed body lying at Aoko's feet. It was now whole. Corpse reanimation? Wound healing? It didn't look like Aoko had used a significant formula, and besides, regenerating a body did not bring it back to life. Since the dawn of time, even true magic has never been able to bring back the dead. But the body of the boy behind Aoko was moving. It was breathing like it was taking a nap.
死者の蘇生が青崎の魔法いや違うあれは蘇生というより
Before she could think of an answer, Toko realized what had seemed out of place to her before. Aoko's mannerisms appeared beyond her years. Her appearance had changed ever so slightly, but beyond there had been a change from within. By the time Toko arrived at that seemingly impossible conclusion, Aoko had closed the distance between them. Aoko raised her left hand eye level. Toko could see, nor hear the magical energy generating inside Aoko. It was sound Toko had never heard before. Aoko only possessed single function low-grade circuits no better than any other third-rate mage, so she generated magical energy at a much lower rate than Toko. However, the speed was absurdly quick, moving even faster than the blood pumping through her body. Magecraft could vibrate, but how in the hell were the activated magic circuits audible? Even the Association had never heard of such a thing.
我が目前に勝利ありき
Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna help. Spurred to action by the sudden dread she felt, Toko hurriedly carved runes into the air. Toko summoned the divine protection of victory, Tyr, to surround herself with a barrier, which was further enhanced by her crests. The Norse god of war, interesting name. Paying it no mind, Aoko held her arm steady, not moving it up to strike her target directly.
まだ変化
Aoko commanded herself succinctly. Yeah, it didn't help. This was beyond magecraft. In just a few words, she had fired 20 magic bullets. Like a meteor shower, the bullets smashed through the rocket-proof rune barrier, as well as Toko's spell-woven coat. The protective runes lining her coat screamed. They would not be able to take another barrage like that. And she'd already taken internal injuries. She loathed to admit it, but Aoko vastly outclassed Toko in terms of raw power. Even harder to admit was that her sister probably had not even brought out the big guns yet. Jumping backward, Toko drew more runic symbols in the air. In response, her crests burned brightly. But... with a single word, Aoko nullified the runes, dissolving them before they could be given meaning. The power of Aoko's words had surpassed the magical energy of Toko's rune magecraft. With the runes nullified, Aoko continued advancing through the white flowers. From her calmness to the robust spinning of her magic circuits, and her breathing, she was different. A woman with sublime self-control, a trait only found in mages with a lifetime of combat experience. Given the evidence, that was the only explanation for the Awazaki magic. Aoko's magic circuits had not been amplified. That would have been impossible anyway. Like Toko, she would have to externalize them, which would just increase the scope of her magical energy and techniques. By nature, the quality of a mage's magic circuits did not change, but Aoko was now clearly a superior mage to Toko. So there was only one logical conclusion. In an instant, she had grown from an amateur to a veteran. She fast-forwarded her own time. The scarred red mage turned her back on her sister and ran. She knew she couldn't win, so she fled toward the old school building. Aoko did not fire. Not out of pity, but because she deduced that an attack at this range was risky. She went to chase after her sister, but stopped suddenly. A few words caught in her throat. She took a small breath.
Alice, そいつお願い.
Okay. She said, slightly embarrassed by the maturity of her voice. White petals flitted through the air. Without looking back, she made after Toko, her long hair flowing behind her. I'm happy now. Our boy is alive? Question mark. It said he was breathing. Huh? His eyelids. Oh yeah. Okay, he's alive. His eyelids snapped open. At last, Sojuro awoke from his long slumber. Lying on his back, he gazed up at the stars. The trees around him created a porthole into space. Despite seeing all of this for the first time, he felt an uncomfortable sense of déjà vu. So many questions. What happened before he fell asleep? Why had he been sleeping? Everything was just so hazy. It was like he had walked out the door one minute and woken up in bed the next. With so many thoughts clouding his mind, he could barely recall his own name. All he could remember was a girl he'd never seen before. To bring him back, did she have to, like, wipe his memories? And something thin around his neck.
しずきくん。
The voice, quiet but clear, belonged to the girl named Alice Kwonji, who was at his side.
そういえば、そうだった。
He sat up, mumbling incoherently. The black-clad girl knelt next to him.
花だ。
Yeah, he said, paying no mind to Alice. Or maybe he was just confused for a moment. Under the blue moonlight, spring flowers swayed, surrounded by dead trees and snow. Against the curtain of night, white petals danced in the breeze like butterflies. Staring long and hard at the spectacle, Sojuro suddenly raised his fingers to his neck. He moved carefully, like he was touching a wound. Then gradually he began squeezing, harder, harder.
しずきくん。
The voice of the girl beside him brought him back to reality.
せっかく戻れたのに。また行くの？
Yeah. She sounded both sad and reproachful. But Sojuro didn't understand why. Seeing the uncharacteristic concern in her eyes snapped him to his senses.
行くってどこに？
His fingers fell away from his neck. Without answering, she blankly looked to the sky. Though there was only the infinite darkness of space.
まあいいや。それより俺は何をしてたんだろう。なんか変だ。ごちゃごちゃしてる。
Yeah, it's probably the whole being dead thing. Sojuro tilted his head in confusion. Alice observed him motionlessly. This bewildered boy was a far cry from the one that made short work of a werewolf. Then again, this was Sojuro. As she stared at him, she realized she didn't have an answer he could understand. So she tried asking a question. The same question she'd asked him repeatedly as he slept, but eventually gave up expecting a response to.
今までしずきくんは何をしていたの？
Her quiet question was spoken like an enthralling spell of magecraft. Said spell seemed to work, and Sojuro sank into a sea of memories. Atop the bright white hill, they quietly sat for a while, like siblings.
誰かの声が聞こえた気がする。何かを聞いているようだった。けど、自分は最後まで一言も返せなかった。
Though consumed by the darkness of death, he could still vaguely recall the girl's question. He was not aware that he had died, but it seemed a fragment of time remained from when he had been with her. Sojuro's expression darkened, filled with regret. Looking at his profile, Alice pressed him further.
それで欲しいものは見つかった？
Remembering that someone had asked him questions, he gave a slight nod.
ああ、そうだった。けれどね、アリス。そんなものは見つからないって思っていたんだ。ずっとそう思っていた。
The regret in his voice was accompanied by a hint of strength. Oop, sorry. Lowering his gaze, Sojuro saw a white flower garden that looked like something from the afterlife. It shone brightly, captivating him.
思い出した。青子の前でざっくり言ったんだっけ。なのに生きているのはどういうことなんだろ
う。Well, it's a real good question, actually. Because, like, she accelerated her own time. But I guess it works beyond just herself, so she was able to put his body back, I guess? Sojuro said, prodding his body curiously. His arms were their old selves again. But what of Aoko? He, turning toward Alice for an answer, who sat among the flowers looking sullen. I think it's supposed to be he turned toward Alice for an answer.
巻き戻されたのよ、しずきくんは。この風景も本来はあなたの記憶だけど、わからない。
Alice seemed to be speaking in riddles.
俺の記憶って、その割には知らないところなんだけど。
今しずきくんの時間は青子に使われているから、それが戻されるまで思い出すことはないわ。
Oh, is it? Wait. I don't know. She answered ominously as she cast her gaze over the flower garden.
でも、これが消えてしまうのは残念ね。元に戻れば、思い返せるのは私だけなのに。
Looking at the white blossoms, she smiled momentarily. Her words only confused him further.
アリス、君答える気がないんだろ
う。Nah, he said dejectedly, prompting Alice to face him. What emotions lay inside those deep eyes?
意味のない話だけど、聞きたい？
Yeah.
聞きたい。アリスが教えてくれるならなおさらだ。
Sojuro nodded enthusiastically, while Alice took a deep breath and closed her eyes. When she spoke in as caring a tone as she was capable of.
結論だけ言うと、あなたは一度死んで生き返ったの。
Okay.
しずきくんがトーコさんに殺されてから、青子が目を覚ますまでの5分間分の時間を巻き戻して。その時、あなたは10年近い年月を青子に使われた。2人とも肉体年齢は変わってないから、中の時間だけ持っていったんでしょうね。だから今、この景色を懐かしく思えるのは青子だけ。そして、
And once the time exchange was over, neither Aoko nor Sojuro would remember what happened during these moments. When Aoko used someone else to channel her true magic, it did not affect her alone. If she had rewound time for only herself, the temporal inconsistencies would form part of her own experience. However, this was proper time travel. The inconsistencies would be corrected. When the magic ended, both Aoko's memories of this place and Sojuro's unfamiliarity with it would be corrected. This miracle would become unrealized. Only the observers would remember this brilliant white sea of flowers, Alice and Toko.
時間を持っていく?
Yeah, Sojuro asked, his head tilting even farther at Alice's general explanation. She recalled how Aoko had said that if you gave Sojuro a roundabout answer, he would stop asking questions even if he didn't comprehend it.
しずきくんを生き返らせる方法はなかったから、命の復元より死そのものの回避を青子は試みたのよ。
I feel like that's against magical code. There's probably some code out there that's like, don't remember, don't mess with time. But I don't know.
まだ青子には無理なのか、それとも今回もひよったのか。大きな操作は避けて小さな操作、自分とあなただけの交換にとどめたようね。あなたは今5分間だけ時間を飛んだことになるわ。仮に遠い未来、この時間を検索できる人がいたとしても、あなただけは誰にも見つけられない。だって時間軸の上にいなかったんですもの。そして同時に青子は自分の時間を上乗せするためにあなたから時間を借り受けた。多分幼年期の時間でしょうね。個人の時間操作は忘却している部分の方が楽だと聞くし。しずきくん。
Did I slow down? Alice asked with her eyes. All Sojuro could do was nod.
つまり2つの奇跡を青子は行使したの。あなたの体の巻き戻しと自分の体の早送りね。しずきくんの時間に介入する際、ついでに10年分の時間を借り受けて未来の自分を持ってきた。だから今トウコさんを殺そうとしているのは27歳分の時間を持った青崎青子ということになるわ。
I have no comment. What on earth was Alice talking about? Sojuro's expression gave away his thoughts, though the part about Toko made him furrow his brow.
トウコさんを殺すって青子が。
いえ。
もう終わってるでしょうけど。
As soon as Alice answered, Sojuro sped off. Right, you're really gonna try and stop her from killing her? Okay, I mean... You know Toko killed you, right, Sojuro? Kicking up white petals behind him as he ran. The brave boy who defeated a werewolf was back. Alice watched him go. On a snowy night, the same boy ran down Shiro Inuzuka Hill for her too. Sojuro entered the school building. Lights flashed and the sounds of destruction exploded around him, threatening to turn the area into a burial ground. Still, he remained focused.
ほら。悪いけれど、やっぱり無駄だったわ、青子。
Yeah. Her words only reached the white flowers around her. Aoko knew Sojuro too well, so she wanted Alice to stop him. If he tried to interfere in the battle against Toko, she couldn't protect him this time. But it was too late to celebrate Aoko's judgment now. The girl in black had no intention of going after him. She simply sat for a while, gazing forlornly at the transient flower garden. I cannot talk today. Oh my god. Aoko's not impressed, I guess. A storm of magic bullets struck down a hail of lightning blades. A mage's workshop was their home base, and last line of defense. It featured an abundance of defensive spells designed to cut down brazen challengers and thieves. The old school building was no exception, painstakingly rigged by the puppet master and rune mage, Toko Ozaki. A reflection of her bizarre obsessions, the workshop was set to indiscriminately destroy any intruders. Toko complained as she ran down the hallway, activating her traps along the way. But nothing seemed to work. You know, I know it's probably not in her nature to give up, but Toko should probably give up. None of the runes, regardless of their quality or quantity, could slow her sister down. Her reaction speed and ability to predict attacks could only be described as transcendent. Even magic bullets she fired from both her arms were too much, destroying the runes in the very walls that housed them. It's very in tune with her personality, so yeah. As she spat out her words, the ceiling opened, increasing the pressure from the runes. Invisible walls plopped up in the hallway. Aoko stopped and swung her right leg upward. Straight toward the ceiling. Her foot cut through the thick air like a knife through butter, shattering the ceiling and the runes along with it.
あんたの方こそいつまで経ってもこの凝り性。どこもかしこもルーンだらけ。少しは遠慮ってもんがないの？宇宙要塞ばりに改造してんじゃないっての。みんなの思い出の校舎なんだからもっと大切に扱いなさいよね。
It's a weird thing we hung up on. The wooden boards along the hallway that had withstood decades of wind and snow were now destroyed. Aoko charged forward. The chaos was inevitable. While Toko's runes cursed living creatures, Aoko's magic bullets destroyed all without prejudice. I mean, who needs elegance when she's trying to beat your ass? Toko would do anything to change her blood, but there were more pressing matters at hand. The girl rushing her now is not the sister she remembered, but rather a more complete version of her. Toko couldn't afford to let her guard down for a second. But... localized time travel. Toko didn't believe that was the true nature of the Aozaki's magic. Aoko's transformation had to be a mere byproduct of true magic. She couldn't make heads or tails out of its depth even with Aoko having achieved it. At the very least, it wasn't so simple a miracle. After all, the concept of time travel was already made possible through the second magic. Rec manipulation, revision of possibilities, and so forth involved the operation of parallel worlds. That would be Rin's ancestor, right? What's his name? Fuck, I forgot his name. The old dude. I don't remember. But that guy, I think, right? So there was no way that could be the fifth magic.
となると、次に出てくる疑問はこれか。青子、貴様、その10年分の時間をどこから持ってきた？
The guy you killed.
あのボンクラからよ、悪い。後で返すんだから、あんたに非難される覚えはありませんけど。
That makes sense. There was a bias, but the amount of time on this axis had not been changed. But...
では、あの5分間はどうする？まさか私を始末した後、彼を元の状態に戻すのか？
Okay, I'm still confused about the 5 minutes part. I didn't wrap my head around that. So like, yeah, she bought his time, but I still don't understand the point of the 5 minutes. To be perfectly honest. Aoko stopped in her tracks. Toko had took aim at Aoko's glaring oversight. Awazaki magic and Aoko's humanity were inconsistent.
そうだ。時間操作では死者の蘇生は許されない。お前がしたことは一時だけの気休めか。
The magic crests on Toko's back began to demonstrate their true worth. Drawing upon the magical energy stored in the crests, she materialized her largest trap yet in the hallway.
あるいはより罪深い暴虐ということだ。
Three runestones appeared. Their scale and level of magical energy were wildly different from the other runes. Created by Toko herself at the Mages Association, they were replicas of one of the lost primordial runes created by a Nordic giant. The three thin crystalline lenses amplified her carved runes tens of millions of times. They rendered projectiles like magic bullets ineffective. What about... Even if Aoko's magical output far exceeded Toko's, these giant slabs were several times more powerful still. Aoko's signature magecraft could only release magical energy, so she had no way to defend or evade the attack. You sure with that? Pushing herself on, Aoko took a deep breath of resolve. Instead of defending or dodging, she went low and charged into the rune storm. Apparently. Infuriated by the realization, Toko set her magic crest to full power. Through repeated second-long bursts of time travel, Aoko was able to avoid the runes completely. She was either sending the attacks to impact through a different time, or layering several thousands of herself atop one another. Whatever. No way she could keep that kind of magical energy output. I don't know about that. Aoko kicked the crystal slab to pieces. Two remained, distance 30 feet. Toko had 10 seconds of magical energy left. That was all she needed. Aoko, on the other hand, would stop now if she had any common sense as a mage. She couldn't continue breaking the rules for much longer. Then again, time travel itself was breaking the rules.
Aoko!
Once again, Aoko used the same technique. Toko's suspicion turned into white-hot hatred. She couldn't care less about her time travel formula. It was the amount of magical energy she had. Where was she pulling the energy necessary to jump through time for so long? What? It was the death of Sojuro Shizuki. If she had brought him back 5 minutes, 20... Oh, that's... Okay, I see, okay. The 5... Okay, yeah, I understand the 5 minutes now. To when he was still alive. Where would those 5 minutes go? Oh, those 5 minutes are being used to... Oh. Aoko's magic wasn't using parallel worlds to change this one. She had only rewound Sojuro's 5 minutes. Then, logically, he'd return to being a corpse as soon as the magic ended. Time travel that didn't change the world couldn't change the past. Therefore, if she wanted to save him, she had to either truly resurrect him or send those 5 minutes of reality somewhere far away without returning them. Okay, so our boy ain't gonna die again at all. Okay, so that's good. Probably. I don't know. But when that, I don't know. I'm trying to apply like other sorts of like sci-fi like time travel logic to this, and I probably shouldn't be. Like, but technically, when it's like, I'm not gonna worry about like the details. Like, he's alive, and I'll take it. Okay. Aoko showed no sign of slowing. From behind her crystal barrier, Toko glared at Aoko with disdain.
答えろ、アオコ。貴様、彼の時間をどこにやった？そこにあった熱量の帳尻をどうやって合わせている？
そんなの知るか。あいつの時間なら遥かな未来に置いてきたわよ。
Like the future in general, or like his future? So like when he's like 60 years old, is he just gonna randomly be cut in half again out of nowhere? Like, "15 feet to go." Faced with such madness, Toko wanted to cover her eyes. She put the dead of the present in the distant future. A time paradox would have been more humane. Such an enormous, haphazard consumption of heat could not be allowed. After all, time travel alone required a massive amount of energy. Magical energy was required to bring things from somewhere else. At the same time, losing something that exists here consumed an incredible amount of energy. And what about the magical energy used for the cooling? It either fell out of equilibrium, or if either fell out of equilibrium, it would mean total chaos. The distortion caused by her magic would come to affect this entire sector of space.
ここに極まったな。何千億年後に来る宇宙の死滅。人類の行く末に待つデッドエンドにさらなる負債を押し付ける気か。
I guess.
この星の頭上に隕石を作っているようなものだぞ。というか、お前の重みでこの星を押しつぶす気か。
That last comment made Aoko's eyes widen. Her every step exerted such force it broke the floorboards beneath her feet.
その時はその時で、今度は負債を過去に送ってやるわよ。それなら文句ないんでしょ。
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if this.
歪みに潰されるのは過去だけなんだから。
それで解決したつもりか。現在が確定している以上、過去を消滅させてもいいと。それでいいのは私たちだけだ。問題の総量、宇宙の負債はどうする？
Exactly. Even if the universe were closed, or the present were still expanding, the absurd increase in heat consumption would become uncontrollable. That which waits for the end of infinite expansion, infinite consumption, and infinite growth is a future without hope. The nothingness before creation. Eventually, the universe would burn up.
青崎の魔法はその結末をより確かなものにするだけだ。その責任をお前は。
言われなくても分かってる。責任なんて私が生きてる間に何とかするわよ。
The rune blast, now carrying all of Toko's hatred, focused into a scorching hot laser beam. Her body being torn into by the intense heat, and her emotions raging, Aoko drove her foot to the ground.
責任を取ると言ったな。ではその具体案は。
そんなのこれから考えるに決まってるでしょ。
お前は最悪だ。
Toko's last defense was shattered. Close enough to connect, the two mages unleashed their magecraft. Red runes, blue ether. In the cascade of magic bullets, Toko Aozaki's crests were torn to pieces, and so was Toko herself. It was just as Alice said. By the time Sojuro arrived, it was already over. The old school building's wooden boards survived the elements for decades, but they were not ready for a mage duel. The entrance door hung off its hinges. The floorboards groaned. The stairs were ready to collapse underfoot. Toko's escape and Aoko's pursuit had left a trail of destruction leading all the way to the second floor. The chaos continued to the end of the hallway, by the stairs to the third floor. Toko sat in a heap with her back against the wall. Despite her injuries, she kept her eyes firmly on Aoko. She was bleeding internally and had multiple broken bones. She would not be moving anytime soon. Possibly damaged by Aoko's flying kick, her mystic eyes had ruptured from within, closing them indefinitely. Despite her battered and broken body, she was still breathing steadily, a testament to her stubbornness. Before her stood Aoko, staring down at her uninjured.
屋上までは持つと思っていたんだが。
Toko wasn't trying to be facetious. She sounded genuinely disappointed. Aoko responded with a cold glare. Her azure eyes had not changed one bit. They were callous as ever, yet undeniably beautiful. From where she stood, Aoko held her hand out toward Toko. Like a hunter about to put a wounded prey out of its misery. The victor was decided. The mage came to steal land and got a death sentence for her trouble. The silence was disquieting. Moonlight peered through the demolished ceiling, illuminating the two sisters with its stare. The utterly mad sibling squabble was over. Now the fireworks were finished, and the cold wind had returned to claim the old school building.
何か言い残すことはある?
Fuck you. Aoko's voice cut through the silence. Toko thought for a moment, before lightly patting her coat pocket. Nothing. She frowned.
最後に一服と思ったが、あいにくお前を待っている間に吸い切ってしまってね。日本のタバコはうますぎていけない。
Aoko gave a small nod.
なかなか常人には真似できない遺言だったわ。
待て待て。いくら私でも遺言まで謎かけをする気はないよ。お望み通り 敗者は敗者らしく当倍を上げるから聞くといい。
Toko's voice was laden with sarcasm, but not hostility or hatred. Perhaps her vendetta was not directed at Aoko herself, but rather a product of two sisters born into a mage family.
青崎の魔法が時間旅行に端を発するものとは思わなかった。まだ事情がありそうだが、当事者ではない私には何ともね。ボンプにはわからない悩みだ。せいぜい大事に付き合っていけばいいさ。しかし10年経ってもそれでは先が思いやられる。アリスは何をしていたんだか。
アリスにしてはよく付き合ってくれた方よ。魔術師としてはいつまでも半人前っていうのが彼女の結論。けどまあそうね、あの狼とならいい勝負をしたんじゃない？
あれはダメだ。敗北を知ってしまった。もう完全じゃない。
I don't know about that.
半人前に値で勝っていようが、魔法の前には得意性を見失うだろう。ところで青子、お前の魔法とやらは手段か、それとも結果か。
Toko wanted to know if it came before or came after. Did Aoko need magic to get her where she needed to go? Or did she obtain magic as a result of reaching that place?
あとよ、私は扉の前で尻尾を巻いたからジジイの思惑なんて知らないけど。
第一魔法と同じ経緯か。ますます業が深い。第2から第4はその場所へ到達するために生み出されたものと聞く。同族嫌悪は世の常だ。いずれ第一と食い合わなければいいのだがね。しかし扉ときたか。魔法の継承とはパスの継承のようだな。ではやはりここにユミルの入り口があると。
北欧かぶれのあなたにとってはね、私にとっては赤社の門と言えるものよ。最初からそれを狙っていたんでしょ、あなたは。
Toko used every ounce of strength she could find to nod.
望めば手に入るというのに何台も待つのは嫌だったんだ。ソフトはそれで決別したようなものだったよ。
Did anyone else hear glass breaking?
青崎に対する復讐心はそれには優先されなかった。まあ全ては終わったことだ。もう語る必要はない。最後に根源に触れた感想が聞きたいな。
Toko spoke after taking a deep breath. Her last words showed no trace of hatred. Aoko remained silent as she began raising her right hand up high. She recalled her grandfather's orders, the source of true magic. Revealing one's knowledge or impressions of the root was strictly forbidden. But this was her sister's dying wish. Maybe it would be okay. The conversation would end the moment she brought her arm down. Then this rotting shell of a building would become her sibling's tomb. What harm could it do? And it's not like she planned to follow her grandfather's rules anyway.
白状するとね、姉さん。
Aoko's voice carried through the blue hallway.
正直、 全然わからなかったわ。
Wait, when she... No, I don't know. Aoko gave a blunt reply and brought her arm down like a bolt of lightning. Or at least, she tried to. Her arm wouldn't listen to her. It wouldn't budge. He's not letting you dirty your hands today, Aoko. Not today.
何のつもり？
Cursing Alice, Aoko spat her question out with venom. Sojuro materialized from behind, taking hold of her raised arm. Though unable to express it, Toko was shocked to see him too.
で、話して。
No. Without looking at him, or even at her restrained hand, Aoko spoke sternly, her eyes forward. Come to think of it, at the amusement park, he appeared out of nowhere to protect her from that puppet.
聞こえなかった。二度はないわよ。
She wasn't bluffing. If he interfered, even he would be given no mercy. I've decided to let you live. It would go against that promise, but he should know better. Even so, he maintained his grip on her arm.
いい加減に。
As Aoko turned around, the word told caught in her throat. She immediately regretted looking at him. She saw herself in his expression. Mournful sadness. Judgmental anger. His conflicting emotions spoke to her of her own internal struggle. Voicelessly, quietly, without volition. Rustic gray eyes questioning a deep sin.
言いたいことがあるならはっきり口にしなさい。それができないなら消えて。
Sojuro gently released Aoko's arm as she maintained her resolve. They locked eyes, neither friend nor foe. Their bitterness clashed without words. And then suddenly...
人殺しはいけないことだ。
Ah, Sojuro. Sojuro stated in that matter-of-fact way of his with which Aoko had become all too familiar. His words were empty, trite even. And yet, given her current state, they reached her. Yeah, because she's using 10 years of his life and his personality, pretty much, to be where she's at. So it's like... I imagine it's probably affecting her own judgment and personality in some way. Although she would soon forget the fragments of Sojuro's memories. They made her painfully aware of how he felt. Yep. Still, she couldn't agree with him. It would come back to bite her. If he let Toko go now, her sister would come for her again. She had already made 2 attempts on her life. Aoko did not have it in her to forgive her sister for what she had done. Above all, just as Toko said, if Aoko did not change, she would be a novice forever. She had not even won her first mage battle yet, and she knew putting down a blood relative would require even more conviction. Nevertheless, his words echoed over and over in her heart. Murder is wrong. Such a childish phrase, but the earnestness with which he said it, it was enough to make her sick. Resisting, Aoko glowered at Sojuro.
だから殺されたくせにその相手までかばうっていうのあんたは。元気になったら懲りずにやってくる殺人鬼が相手でも見逃してやれっていうの？
Yeah, I guess.
まさかそこまで言ったら聖者だ。自分にはそこまでのことは言えない。
Or... But he would probably still let her go. He didn't think that Toko would change. He also didn't care to rationalize her actions based on her life. He was simply thankful. Thankful that this person before him was still alive. You seem pretty damn saintly to me. That was what had made Aoko so angry. His overwhelming innocence and self-righteousness enraged her, like the Hall of Mirrors was happening all over again. The only difference was now she knew why he was acting like this. It was because she had taken a part of him. He took a step forward, passing by her, saying words he knew he should not.
仕返しなら殺された人間がやるのが筋だろう。
Oh, you know, I kind of had a feeling that's where this was going, but yeah, no, him just outright saying it is unexpected.
君を止められないのは分かってる。だから青崎がやるぐらいなら俺がやる。
It was difficult to discern who was the more pathetic in all of this. Toko, who had been staring at them the whole time, closed her other eye as if drifting off to sleep.
ごめんなさい、トコさん。
Knowing her fate, Toko dropped her head as best she could as he walked toward her.
そうだな。君にはそれもいいかもしれない。
Oh, really?
今は特殊な状況だから、冷めた後に君がどれほど悔やむことになるか想像もできない。ただ、それで君の停滞は終わるだろう。晴れてみそぎ落としというわけだ。純粋に祝福してあげられる。
You know, I have the feeling that this won't be his first time killing someone.
気に食わないのは、それを決意させたのが私ではなかったということぐらいか。
She knew that Sojuro could not understand. Her words hanging in the air, she closed her lips tightly, then weakly stuck out her slender neck. Sojuro took another step forward. Before he could do anything, Aoko moved. Spinning in front of Sojuro, she cut off her magical energy and swung her hand as hard as she could. The sound of her slapping his face echoed through the hall, along with his staggering footsteps, or steps.
Aozaki.
Mm-hmm.
卑怯者。
What? Tears of anger welling in her eyes, Aoko turned her back to Sojuro, sulking as though she would kill him as soon as she looked at it again.
他人の記憶を取り込んだ代償か。引きずられたな、青子。
A little bit.
そうよ。自分の意志を人に曲げられるのがこんなに悔しいなんて知らなかった。
That was about all Aoko could mutter in response. The corners of Toko's lips curled into a grin.
何がおかしいのよ、あなた。
いや、お前にも人並みの情けがあるとは思っていなくてね。バカ呼ばわりは訂正しておくよ。他人の理想を背負うのに怯えるなんて10年経っても可愛いじゃないか。
あんたね。
そう睨むな。今のは心からの賛辞だ。で、 私をどうする？彼に殺させるか、それとも見逃すか？
仕方ないでしょ。あなたの言う通り、これが何よりの代償だったんだから。
Aoko said begrudgingly, shooting Sojuro a sideways glance. He seemed to have recovered from the slap, and his usual absent-minded look had returned. He may have had no memories of his past, but his morals and values were too deep to be erased. Sojuro was trying to violate those. It would eat away at him forever. And he would be doing it not for himself, but for Aoko. Aoko understood this all too well now. The moment he said he would do it was the moment he lost. Not stopping him would be no different than watching him die. And she would lose something important inside her. Aoko didn't want that to happen.
青崎、やっぱりその自分の受けた傷は自分で返さないと気が済まない。
Bro, shut up! Sojuro, shut up! Aoko ignored Sojuro, who seemed to have gotten the wrong idea. Instead, she directed her scowl at Toko, who still lay collapsed in front of her.
わかったわよ。トウコ、今回は見逃してあげる。けど、ただで帰れるとは思ってないわよね。
Toko scowled at her little sister, standing smugly over her.
祖父のところに突き出すのなら、ここで引導を渡してくれ。
まさか、私もあの人には会いたくないもの。あなたにはこのまま出て行ってもらうわ。邪魔もしないし、教会に届けも出さない。律子は私が言い含めておくから、今回の件は私たちだけの秘密よ。
Toko's brows creased further. There had to be a catch.
青子、何を企んでいる？
別に。その代わりに呪いをプレゼントしようと思って。今まで散々ガンド食らってきたし、おあいこでしょ。まあ、私のはちょっと強力だけど。今後この土地に入ろうものなら、マダガスカルガエルになってもらうわ。
Smiling as if they had just arranged to eat Chinese food tomorrow night, Aoko walked toward Toko. I mean, like if she ever appears around Aoko again or appears in Misaki again. That's what I'm curious about.
はて、なんでそういうものだけ習得してるんだ、お前は。
Alice.
そりゃ師匠がアリスだもの。偏るのは当然でしょ。
The elder Awazaki sister's brow knitted so hard it could have produced a sweater. Perhaps this is why her sister would stay a novice forever.
宗十郎、席外して。覗き見が趣味なら別に見ていってもいいけど。
What do you have to like put like do you have to like inscribe the curse onto like her bearer's chin or skin, not chin, skin? So like you'd have to undress her? As she spoke, she began removing her sister's overcoat. Hey yo, Sojuro, stay here a minute, bum. Stay here a minute. The uncomfortable look in Toko's eyes compared to the strangely cheerful one in Aoko's caused Sojuro to hesitate. Was it really okay to leave the two of them alone? Eventually he nodded. This was just a weird game between sisters. Yeah.
覗き見は確かにいい趣味じゃないな。
Yeah, I guess not. It probably, yeah. Muttering more to himself than anything, he ducked into an empty classroom.
なんだそのブサイクで悪趣味な術式は。センスがないにも程がある。お前本当に私の妹か？
ええ、この通り芸術的才能は全部姉貴に持っていかれた哀れな妹でして、嘆くなら自分の天才性を嘆きなさい、トコ。
Aoko, you are way too cheeky. Down the cold, dilapidated hallway, cries of sadness, joy, and anguish rang out. Damn, no bearskin Toko. Snap. Outside, the fully bloomed white flower petals floated one by one into the night. Standing among the ballet of petals, Alice gazed up at the sky. The blossoms gathered into a cloud, then slowly vanished as though falling asleep. Soon, not a single flower would remain, and the clearing would return to a snowy tundra. The magic had ended. In a matter of minutes, the past would return to its rightful place. Along with it, the time shared between the boy and the girl. The old school building was still. Alice embraced the silence and patiently waited. After a while, Sojuro emerged from the building, and Alice released a puff of white breath. A small sigh of relief. It was over. And then out comes Toko. Sojuro approached, carrying Aoko, cradling her in his arms. Was she asleep? Her eyes were closed and she seemed peaceful. Her hair and limp body dangled like a silk drape. She looked just like Sleeping Beauty.
待っていてくれたんだ、アリス。
He said, holding Aoko with little effort. Alice nodded.
トウコさんはどうなったの？
いや、よくわからないけど、トウコさんは帰ったよ。青崎が言うには、そう簡単に解除できない呪いをかけたから、向こう10年は三崎市には入ってこれないって。その後、トウコさんが尻尾を巻くのを仁王立ちで見届けて、見えなくなったらそのまま倒れたんだ。
Alice's response was brief, as if she was wondering if things were really so simple. She seemed more concerned about Toko than Aoko, which made Sojuro concerned about Alice and Aoko's relationship more than anything.
それはともかくとして、青子はどうなっているんだろう。
He asked nonchalantly as he looked at Aoko breathing deeply in her sleep.
矛盾と清純を合わせているのね。
Okay, whatever that means.
彼女の時間は今の時間とは異なってしまったから。歯車を合わせるまで目は覚めないわ。
Sojuro nodded in understanding, very clearly still not comprehending a word Alice just said.
なんか拍子抜けしたよ。
Yeah, I guess.
結局、トウコさんと青崎、どっちが勝ったのかよくつかめない。
そうね。魔術師の争いには明確な点数はつけられないから。どちらが強いかで勝負はつかないわ。トウコさんの大目的が青崎の魔法の解明なら、魔法を使わされた時点で青子の負けよ。その後のいざこざは凱旋する勝者を夜道で襲ったようなものだし。
Alice said as she turned her sights to the forest. Even Sojuro could tell that that was Alice's way of saying, "Let's go home."
そうだね。青崎もアリスもこのままじゃ風邪をひく。
That's what you're worried about?
ああ、それと青崎がトウコさんに呪いをかけるとき何かしてたんだけど。
Sojuro trailed off, hoping Alice would tell him what it was, but a stony and somewhat affected gaze was her response.
見たの？しずきくん。
No.
いや、青崎が出てけって。
そう。それで青子はどんな呪いをかけたの？
カエルがどうとか。
Sojuro's explanation made Alice's expression darken. Aoko was still a long way from learning any sort of polymorph spells. Her thoughts prevented her from finishing the sentence. In actuality, it was perfectly within Aoko's abilities considering where she was in time at that moment. As Aoko had said, Toko would not be able to disperse the curse for 10 years. And the Aoko of this time had not the ability to use such a curse. Which meant Toko didn't have anyone to rebound the curse to. No matter how much she researched dispelling powerful curses, she could not do it with the Aoko of this timeline.
青子がトウコさんにつけたのは切り傷ぐらいだから、しずきくんが心配するようなことはないわ。
Cut her where? You know what? I don't know. I'm questioning it. You know, let's move on.
青子にしては随分と生ぬるい処置だけど。
You mean like a murder? After her slightly unsettling remark, Alice quietly began to walk. Sojuro followed her, Aoko in his arms. Together, they left the clearing and moved into the forest. As they did, Sojuro abruptly froze.
しずきくん。
He looked back toward the old school building's field with a strange expression. Was it homesickness he felt? Though this was only his second time seeing it, he had a nostalgic feeling, like he would never be back. He looked like a child saying goodbye to an old toy that was to be thrown away. Seeing his expression, Alice felt a hint of sympathy and chided herself.
あの荒れ地がどうかした？
She asked him, watching the flowery garden fade into a snowy field. Sojuro shook his head.
なんとなく知っている場所に似てる気がして。おかしいな。やってきた時はそんな気はしなかったのに。
He stood staring at the tundra for what seemed like an eternity, reluctant to leave. If she left him there, he would still be gazing at it by morning, probably even longer. Or, yeah. But there was no point in doing that. In the end, Alice was the only one who would remember the beautiful scenery he yearned for.
ここはその場所にそんなに似てる？
全然似てない。面影すら皆無だ。
なら、それは気の迷いよ。
Yeah, okay. Sojuro nodded at Alice's harsh conclusion. He smiled slightly, deciding it was pointless to want something that did not exist.
そうだね。多分幻を見ていたんだ。あれは一度幸福だった時の夢だった。
Severing the ties that bound him, Sojuro turned his back away from the snowy clearing, away from the unfamiliar yet familiar place where he had known happiness.
さあ、早く帰ろう。青崎は重いし、体も疲れてる。洋館に着いたらあったかいお茶を入れよう、アリス。
Sojuro spoke her name with a smile. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh, since when did he start saying her name so casually like that? Somehow she managed to nod before beginning to walk again. Oh, as he moved away from her, she asked a small question to his back.
重いって私より。
What? Alice, what's the matter, huh? Aoko was a bit taller than Alice, so naturally she would weigh more. But Alice wanted to hear him say it anyway. Okay. Not one to disappoint, Sojuro answered without missing a beat.
ああ、数値的に言うのならアリスより10キロ増しぐらい。
Uh-huh.
そう青子が聞いてたら大変ね。
Yeah, she probably would. Judging by Alice's tone, she was probably going to tell Aoko later.
意地が悪いな、アリスも。それにさっきのは本人の名誉のために死者誤入してたんだぞ、一応。
Wow! His attempts at being kind had likely drawn him closer to his deathbed.
ダメかな。
Yeah. He asked nervously. Alice couldn't help but crack a smile at his innocence. However, she wasn't used to smiling in front of others, so she turned away and walked into the woods. From Sojuro's perspective, she was storming off in a mood. Well, I mean, it is a mood. Not a mood, but a mood.
なんだ。友達の悪口で怒るなんて、やっぱり仲はいいんじゃないか、青崎。
Yeah, mad. Right. Sojuro rushed to catch up with Alice, gently carrying Aoko along the way. Though the prince lacked the courage to kiss the sleeping princess, he had at least saved her, and was bringing her back to her castle. Despite what he had been through, he didn't look like your typical hero. Still, in this story at least, he most certainly was. And he was the linchpin. Oh, and I assume this was probably the epilogue, huh? A Tale of the Star. Now, the problem is, I've been going for 4 hours. So I'm gonna... man, I kind of want to do the... You know what, I'll leave it to next time. I assume it's the epilogue. Because, like... What else story-wise would there be? Right? It's like... Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. And I really don't have anything to say about it, to be honest. What could I possibly add to like everything that happened there, right? I can't. And so far I've really enjoyed. Again, there's still the epilogue, so I shouldn't be like going about talking about everything yet anyway, but I will say, I'll leave everything till I watch it, till I go through the epilogue. So with that, I'm gonna leave it there. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time for the final chapter part of Witch on the Holy Night. Later.